long to finish the game. So I end up waiting and waiting, and maybe someone else will play again. Pain is reality.
My name is Leslie Cabriel, and my poem is called What They See. They call us wetbacks and claim we're stealing their jobs. They see us as animals, as dirty slobs. They call my mother dirty while my father's thirsty for the drink of a better life. Her tears build up like a tsunami while his are never to be seen. Instead, he's fueled all day by the fire of anger. They see us as pests, a taint in their idealistic world. They're both screaming for their kids to have a good life, along with thousands of other immigrants. They see us as lowlives, undeserving to be in this country. They'd rather see us dead than hear us speaking in our native tongues. They build the walls up faster than we can tear them down. In this country, we receive more hate than the love and acceptance they promised. I've been spit on, shouted at, thrown trash, and yet I am supposed to be thankful for what they've done. They see us with pity instead of with the admiration we deserve for all we've done. What they see is wrong, but they refuse to admit it. Their view will never be true, and one day I hope they can realize that.
My name's Jose, and this is my spoken word, Judgment. I'm so tired of people seeking my downfall, but I'm here every day, strong and still standing tall. They ask me for answers, but all I could do is stall. They harass me with assumptions, make me feel small. I'm so tired of people seeking my downfall. In my own mind, I'm a superhero, but the things you think of me make me feel like a zero. You think I'm dumb with the brain the size of a Cheerio, but I'm dominating, jumping off the top rope like I'm Rey Mysterio. I'm so tired of people seeking my downfall. On the inside, I'm an immature little boy who does nothing more than play with toys. I still watch cartoons. I'm the cookie monster. I eat Chips Ahoy. People send me in as a decoy, underestimate me, and get destroyed. I'm so tired of people seeking my downfall. Your opinions hit me so judgmentally. All these doubters are messing with me mentally, but I know I will change your minds eventually. This is going to be the end of me. I'm so tired of people seeking my downfall.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a great way to kick off our board meeting. We appreciate you being here. Thank you, Tanya and Stephanie. All right, that was our presentation, and we'll move on to our announcements. And we have two of our student board members here, and we'll start with Jimena from San Marin.
Hello. Just a few announcements. We recently had our senior fashion show, and it was very successful. Just thank you to all the stores that donated and all of the chaperones and teachers that helped out with the event. It was really appreciated. So the leadership class is moving on to preparing for prom. Our learning lounge is still open this week. Election week is coming up, and students are preparing to run for ASB elected positions. Our Spring Fling dance is on April 27th, and we recently had another Saturday Academy last Saturday that allowed students to make up for an unexcused absence. Thank you.
Okay. I'm McKenna O'Neill from Novato High School. And this month, we're just getting finished up with our sophomore speeches. On the 7th is our MSA rock band is having a performance at the Phoenix in San Rafael at 7 p.m. And then MSA Theater Studio Night is on the 8th at 7 p.m. And then the 9th is our senior parent dinner dance thing for seniors. And then next week, we have a college night on the 14th at 6 p.m. Our English classes are going to all the senior, people are going to our senior English classes, and we're learning CPR as a graduation requirement. And then on the 15th is our Powder Puff game on the turf field at 7 p.m. And then the 16th is the Last Chance Dance. And then the 17th is a Lucky Run, which is a fundraiser for our Safe Grad Night. And right now, kind of in leadership and in general, we've been working a lot on incorporating our EL students into like dances. So like adding more like publicity to accommodate for them, and like just trying to make them feel more included by adding music and all kinds of stuff. And then we're working on homecoming courts for next year and trying to figure out like how we're gonna do it, because some schools do like boy girl, some schools do like people, so we're just trying to like figure that out for next year. We're definitely gonna change it. We've been talking with like every district from Marin County. And then we are like trying to figure out maybe like a multicultural night or a week or something, and have like an educational week or an educational night just to like educate people. And then we have our disaster drill this Thursday, fourth period at 11:01 or whatever. It's an annual thing. And then our student advocacy council is also working on getting like a wellness center in for next year. So early stages of that is going on.
Great, thank you. Thank you both. Trustee Millerick?
One item, Friday I was able to attend the memorial services for Rob. He worked in our accounts payable department. He managed it for the district. He's been with us for 5 years, and there was over 100 people that came to his services. He's made a huge impact in terms of the people he's worked with, and I think Debbie and I were both able to attend on short notice, and I'm sad he's gone. It's a loss, but the community recognized his importance to the Novato district.
Trustee Nell? No. I won't be silenced. Yeah. We did that on purpose.
Sure. Well, I just want to report to the board that I did on your behalf attend the Joint Legislative Action Committee meeting at the MCOE, where we're getting caught up on current legislation and what's happening with the new governor. I also attended the school fuel board meeting, where I was brought up to date on their activities centering around participation with School Rule, which is the countywide fundraising foundation, and we also discussed the upcoming Tour Novato, which is the bike fundraiser. I also had the privilege of sitting in with the junior ROTC Building Better Citizens joint meeting, and we're going to be taking some action on some of that today. And lastly but not least, I had an opportunity to attend some of the pre-K through third grade dinner, where we basically had a countywide effort around pedagogy and different ways to focus on younger population. And I wanted to recognize Trustee Butler, who traveled to Colorado with a group, but took time out of her busy life to do that and to represent us in the county. And thank you for doing that. And yep, you were a presenter that evening as well. So
thank you.
Kind of a busy time. Thank you.
Trustee Gasson?
So I participated in the school site council meeting, which I thought was great. I was very impressed with how many people were there. I'm sorry that I didn't get to be at the end of it, but it was a great experience. I also went to the San Marin improvement meeting. That was also very informative and well attended. And on Friday, I was at the North Marin Council PTA meeting.
Okay, Trustee Mack?
Try to be quick. Also attended the SMIA meeting. Found it very useful to see.
Can you just explain, sorry, what was?
San Marin Improvement Association meeting,
and what was
wherein we were
there?
reviewing the San Andreas parcel and the potential ideas for what we might do there. And it was good to see that there's a lot more understanding amongst the group, and I think we're moving along quite well. Still lots to figure out. But I think we're on the right path, and I'm really happy with the way things are moving, and very excited about making this happen for our teachers. As well, this past Saturday, I attended, along with Trustee Butler, the MSA Showcase. those of you who haven't gone, I highly, highly recommend it. If you really want to see what MSA is about, it'll show you what's going on. And basically, I can't help but think that we have a jewel that could be fantastic for bringing in more ADA from outside our district. I've said that a few times, but we'll continue working on that. And last but not least, last night I attended the San Marin All Sports Boosters meeting. Great meeting. Basically, the primary thrust was trying to put together a list of capital improvement projects that they're looking to do so that whenever that rolls around, they actually have a strong list of what their priorities will be. So looking forward to seeing that.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Cooper.
Yeah, so last week I attended the P3 grant dinner as well. That was great. It was very well attended. It's always good to hear the success stories and kind of plan moving forward what we're going to be doing or what they're going to be doing. And thank you, Trustee Butler, for your participation in that. I went to the Measure G oversight meeting last night, and their major charge is to approve the audit of the way the district is spending its money for the Measure G. And it's a big job, it's a big responsibility, and I know the committee is dedicated to doing a great job, and they asked some very good questions, and it was a great meeting. And finally, I attended the SMIH, San Marin Improvement Association meeting as well, and I thought that was a great turnout. And I think overall the people that were there were happy to be included and to be advised kind of step by, as we go along this process, what we're thinking and what we're doing. Thanks.
Trustee Gila?
This is probably the second time I don't have a comment in 9 years.
All right, neither do I because everybody said everything that I went to. So we'll just move on.
So a couple things. One, we did our emergency drill last week. So just like the sites are all doing their emergency drills in preparation, we do those here at the district office as well. So we posted that on What's Up Wednesday. Thanks to Leslie Benjamin and Bill Welch and Lonnie for taking us through those. So really, with the drill we picked was an active shooter drill. What if there's an active shooter drill at one of the sites? We get our own emergency team together and try to support that any way we can. Those are really helpful. We had our LCAP meeting, our second LCAP meeting last week. That's how we spent the approximately $4 million in supplemental funds that we get, and we have great participation on that. This morning I met with some of the Rotary gentlemen from the Maine Nevada Rotary. They have actually 17 scholarships that they give out. So we talked to them. I see that Laura's here and Michelle's here. We got to find a way to make sure our students know about that because a lot of them don't, and there's just amazing amounts of money that are out there for our kids. I want to make sure that doesn't get left on the table. So thanks to Rotary, all the Rotaries for the support they have. It's been great.
Trustee Millerick, do you want to announce the ribbon cutting for the community building? Yeah, that's this weekend, or no, it's Friday.
This Friday, and I'm going to check my calendar. I think it's 11:30.
11:30 to 12, I believe.
That's right.
Out at IVC.
So at Indian Valley campus, as you know, the College of Marin has had a bond measure, and they're building facilities as Nevada Unified School District, and they're building a new pool. And they're upgrading one of the buildings for teaching and learning, their classroom and structure. They're also building a multi-use room, a community hall in partnership with Rotary. So there's a $6 million grant that came from Rotary from I'm trying to remember the name of the Jonas Family Fund, which was Roger Wilco stores in Nevada that the Jonas family owned, and that money was turned over to Rotary to build a community facility. They decided to leverage that by partnering dollar for dollar with the College of Marin. That facility has been designed, and groundbreaking will occur this Friday at 11:30 on the Indian Valley campus. Once it's built, all 3 Rotary clubs will be using that, and it will be available for other large venue events. It'll be the largest dining hall in Novato, and it'll compete, I think, clear down to with the facilities in San Rafael. We expect that there'll be people coming to Novato in order for meetings, and that will move a lot more traffic onto the Indian Valley campus, make better use of that asset, and help revitalize that facility that serves all of Novato's kids academically as well as for other cultural events. 11:30 this Friday. Be there, be square.
Okay, thank you
Yes.
for doing
Yeah,
that.
okay,
All right.
thanks.
Let's move on to non-agenda public comment. I do have a few of those cards, so I will read off two names to start with. I have Daniela Imahara and Kate Ruley would be the first two speakers. Yeah, you can give to the board. Yeah. Yeah, you can just give it to Sally and then we'll pass it on down. My sister will do it, so. Okay. Yeah, sorry, yeah. Thank you. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. This issue has been brought to the agenda by first grade parents at Lisetton. I, Daniela Imahara, am representing myself as parent of a first grade student, PTA member, and concerned citizen. In January 2019, students in my son's class were given choice time in which students get to choose their preferred activity, iPad use, Legos, blocks, reading, etc. On this day, my son's teacher had a substitute teacher. A few students were using the iPads, and at least one student pulled up an image associated with the Momo Challenge via the internet. Momo Challenge involves an emaciated, disturbing doll that asks viewers to participate in challenges that range from harmless to deadly and has been appearing around the internet for at least a year. The challenge has been linked to several suicides worldwide, including 2 children who killed themselves in September in Colombia. Students not on the website may have seen the images or at least heard about the contents of Momo and were visibly upset, returning home crying in some cases. My son was having trouble falling asleep because of this image. We are baffled as to why first grade students had access to this content at school during school hours on the school's devices. But even more so, we are outraged at the response we have received by our school's leaders. No effort was made to contact the class's parents about the event, even though several parents complained and wanted this to be addressed to the community. A warning to parents, but also calling attention to the dangers of freer access to the internet. Our principal told us that the district puts tech policies into place and that the current policy at our school was that teachers watch students during the choice period. We do not think that this is fair for teachers nor students, and frankly not realistic. We want to see changes in right away. First, we will pose some questions. 1, the present issue is not this isolated event. The pressing issue is students' seemingly unrestrained access to the internet. Why are first graders accessing internet on iPads? What are district policies with respect to internet use? Is this enforced? Are students learning digital citizenship? If so, when does this begin? And how does a substitute teacher know what to do in this situation? A couple of solutions I have, and hopefully you guys have some solutions as well. Change settings on devices. iPad settings to H, turn location settings off, only allow 1 app to download per password entry, delete any external web browsing applications, Google, Safari, etc. There are free safety browsers available. I'm sure that there's stricter ones out there that I don't know about. But thank you so much for your time and listening to me.
Yep, thank you so much. I don't know if I announced, with non-agenda public comment, the board cannot respond in any way. But what I'm going to ask is, Tim, could you come up and say a few words regarding what we might have in place?
We have just recently started to hear more about the Momo Challenge, and what I can tell you is that the district does have a filtering in place for the internet, but there are some things that are more difficult to filter than others. The Momo Challenge, especially in the last week, has been in the news quite a bit, and the way that the media is treating it is as a hoax, and the articles that I've read say that it's a challenging issue that both parents and schools are trying to figure out how to deal with. in my view, I think what something like this speaks to is really the need to work with our staff, to work with our community, to try and find better ways to understand how to handle children's access to the internet. With regard to digital citizenship, and I'm sure Jen or Amy can speak to this better than I can, but we did come before you last year, and we did give you a scope and sequence that you approved for digital citizenship, and those standards, we're expecting our staff to that they're doing that.
Yeah.
Directly to the digital citizenship. My name is Jen Larson. I'm the Director of Instruction. As Tim mentioned, yes, we, the board approved digital citizenship and technology integration curriculum last year. It starts with TK, has lessons all the way up through our senior year. There are approximately 5 to 7 lessons per year, everything ranging from internet searches to communicating safely on the internet, your digital footprint, what that means, and how to use shared files, and it gets more specific as the ages go up. In addition, we also follow all of the protocols, and that digital citizenship follows the model of Common Sense Media, which has an incredible amount of resources for both parents, teachers, students, and is a resource I would encourage anyone to take a look at. And I believe that our curriculum is also online under the instruction. So if you were interested in looking at what our digital citizenship program looks like, that would be a good place to start.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it, and thank you, Daniela, for coming to speak before the board. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to put this paper down. All right, Kate Ruley, you're up next, and then I have Kimberly Call as the next speaker.
I just would like to say that I think that is a really important topic that we need to address about the internet and but I do want to acknowledge Novato High School for having filters on their computer, because I did hear of a story of a young man who was researching something on the internet that alerted them to the fact that he was in trouble, and that they did get that kid into counseling. So I wanted to acknowledge that it works. My name is Kate Ruley. As many of you know, my son Warren ended his life February 8th. It's been less than a month ago. We are devastated that we could not save our son. And we have committed ourselves to doing all that we can to prevent further loss of life. We're working with the school. We're working together as a community, and so many people are coming forward to address this. No parent should ever suffer this way. So let's do all in our power to make sure that it doesn't. Let's work together to save lives. We need to take action now. We need to stop talking. We need to walk the walk, not talk the talk. We need action. What can we do as a school community? We can have a wellness center. And a wellness center is important, as you know, for many reasons. which I'll go into. But there will need to be funding from the district in order to make this happen. There will be expenses to hire someone who will supervise and coordinate, implement, facilitate, work with volunteers. I have a handful of volunteers that are ready to come forward and spend time in this center. A room has been designated at Novato High School already. There's talk about further training in crisis prevention and that kind of thing at a future date. We'll need funding for that as well. The details and budgets should be discussed immediately before the budget is finalized. I have known students, I have heard stories of students, and I know students who have not been served in their time of need at Novato High. Some suffering from severe anxiety and depression, also grief, have at times had to go into the counselor's office where they would hide in the corner to have a safe place to go. I heard of a girl who hid under a desk in her counselor's office and sobbed and was having an anxiety attack. She had nowhere to go, no safe place to go. The most disturbing story that I have heard recently was of a boy who was in class and he was having an anxiety attack. He was crying and he went unnoticed by the teacher. He called his mother and he said, "Come get me. I want to die." And she rushed him in to the ER. That boy was Jackson Talbot, and his mother is here with us today. Please stand. This is inexcusable. We need to help these kids. We need to help them now. These kids are slipping through our grasp. We need to cast a safety net out underneath them, and we all need to work together to make this happen. The kids need a safe place. They need a wellness center. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Glenn, as well, for being here. I appreciate it, taking the time. And
thank you, Kate. That was very moving. And also for Jackson's mom for being here, and for Glenn and your two daughters and your courage. I met Warren after he left his earthly life. My name is Kimberly Call. I met Kate shortly afterwards, and when asked, I was honored to lead the celebration of life service for Warren at Unity in Marin. A number attending the service said that this message is what is needed for teens in Marin. Since then, I've met a 16-year first grade teacher at Park School in Mill Valley who told me their district has a stated platform for holistic development of students from the earliest grade on. They are learning mindfulness in every grade. My friend starts with a chime to settle and calm the mind with first graders. There is no candy allowed brought to school. Students are required to do regular community service work. There are pillars of character and social and emotional development in each grade. I've not seen this document, but it sounds well thought out and may be a helpful source document for what you want to create in Novato. Since then, I've spoken with a psychotherapist who works in Novato, who has worked with families where suicide has occurred and has made observations about the warning signs that must be widely known. We have vast resources in Marin. We need to study the best of what is out there, employ that, and improve on that. Here in the San Francisco Bay Area, we have rich human potential and consciousness-raising bodies of work, world-renowned meditation centers and teachers, holistic health expertise that is unparalleled in the world. All of this can be drawn upon to educate our youth. I'm a 30-year Fortune 500 executive consultant that brings holistic awareness to my practice. I've had a hands-on healing center for 20 years in Marin. I'm a holistic therapist with numerous trainings in body, emotion, spirit, and both the conscious and unconscious mind. I've worked with thousands of clients and trained hundreds of students. What I know is this: stress and anxiety is a rampant epidemic in the U.S. Statistically, the majority of Americans are drug addicted, sedentary, and obese. They are addicted to caffeine, sugar, a drug clinically proven to be more addictive than cocaine, and antidepressants. Clients suffer as adults and report that their children as young as 13 are suffering from stress. It's clear we all need to learn self-care. In ancient times, wisdom traditions, including spiritual practices fostering respect for nature, were handed down by the elders, shamans, medicine men and women who were respected healers of the tribe. Families lived in intergenerational households who helped each other. Lives were intimately connected with the cycles of nature. The chain has been broken. The transference of wisdom is not reliable. Youth need guidelines for living, wisdom traditions that nurture body, soul, and mind, the whole person. We all need daily practices that center, clear, and uplift us. We need to strengthen our inner self-worth and value and well-being to withstand the toxic influences in the culture, particularly social media and popular culture. By doing so, we build an inner immunity to those toxins so we are not so vulnerable. I am offering myself and my consulting services as a wellness living consultant to help with the input of students, parents, and staff to design a curriculum for wellness living for Novato High. I invite 8 teens to be part of a pilot project coming to my licensed wellness center in San Rafael to help experience new modalities and co-create some of these new program components along with other best practices that we can glean from schools and programs elsewhere to build the immunity of our youth to actually live well in our culture. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one last card. I have Kristen Addix. Has she come back? She said she was running to go get her son in Green Beret. So I might, for the board, I might have, if she shows up, I'm going to have her speak when she does come. So I see Laura here and Michelle's here. Would you like to come up and speak to what maybe Novato High is doing and what San Marin might be doing with the Wellness Center? I know that both sites, the students have brought this obviously to you, and nice to see you.
Good evening. My name is Laura Triantopoulos. I'm counselor at San Marin High School. I'm here representing Mark Sims, our principal, who's also out of town at a conference in San Diego. On his behalf, I'll read the following statement regarding mental health wellness efforts that are currently taking place at San Marin High. The San Marin High staff and students are in the process of hosting a Mental Health Anxiety Awareness Week in the spring, with the target date being somewhat near CASP testing. Several lead students have reached out to local organizations to assist the school with the Wellness Week, and they have a number of ideas they're working on to solidify the event. The same students are planning on attending a trip to visit the Wellness Center at Sir Francis Drake High School, as did several administrators and staff members did earlier this year. Further, this last fall, the San Marin High counseling team, in conjunction with the Bay Area Community Resource Therapist that works at our site, gave classroom presentations on mental health awareness and resources available to our students, both on campus and in our community. Lastly, we're working to find an adequate space to create a wellness support center. However, we have no available space at this time. San Marin High would need financial support to create a space that is deserving of the need to do it right, with appropriate space, staffing, and services. Dr. Sims asked that any requests for additional information or questions be directed to him, which I'm assuming would go through Superintendent Hogeboom. Thanks.
Good evening. Good to see you all. Again, Mr. Brewer is at the conference with many of our principals and has asked me to speak on his behalf. Before the tragic and unexpected loss of one of our students, we have been doing our best this year to amplify student voice and let the youth guide us in how to further support our students in our wellness efforts. So I'm going to list some of the efforts that we've been working on to date. First and foremost, we have 5 counselors at our school. They are not just academic counselors, they are social emotional counselors, because we acknowledge that if a student is not feeling well in their spirit and in their soul, then it's very difficult to learn. Second, we continue to use a very important structure called the SRT, which stands for Student Review Team. This is a counseling and admin infrastructure to care for and monitor students of concern. We meet twice a month. We are piloting restorative practices for peer conflicts rather than focusing on punitive punishment. Because of a really thoughtful student, at the very beginning of the year, we started transforming what we normally do called Kindness Week, which coincides with Valentine's Day. And from a student perspective who really demanded that we rethink that and make that a wellness week. So we had a wellness week with choice workshops, and it was largely planned and executed by students with community partnerships. We are infusing SEL and trauma-informed practices into staff meetings because truly our staff needs support in understanding how to hold space for students who really have a different context of how to deal with stress and anxiety than when we were all students. It's a different world out there. We built yoga into our offerings. It's one of the most popular PE offerings. And we also offer yoga sessions to students and staff at least monthly. We have mindful classes. At this point, they're in pilot mode, and we are offering them to our special education students. And we are planning a 3-phase rollout of a wellness center on campus, and we are so grateful for the advocacy and the grace of Kate and the family in moving forward, both with urgency and with love. In this idea of a 3-phase plan, phase 1 is now with absolutely no additional resources. So we have a classroom from, basically at the beginning of the year, we were unable to staff one of our teaching positions, and we had an extra classroom. We've been using that classroom to pilot things. So I pilot an an EL support class in that classroom, and we are also able to use that classroom to offer it up for this wellness center. It's completely inappropriate to be a wellness center for the long term, but it's something now, and something now is important. Phase 1 is, again, by the grace of volunteers and spirit over folks who are pretty overworked as it is. And so we really hope to think about adding sustainability to this idea of a 3-phase rollout, because everything we're doing right now for wellness feels like it's in pilot mode and extra on top of rather full positions. I would also want to add that we see all of our staff as educators about wellness as well as academics, and yet we need to rethink what that looks like, and the time that we currently have in professional development is not yet ready to do that deep kind of work. So I think for me, I'm going to speak for myself, that these efforts really demand taking time to thoughtfully think about coherence and to think about the way that they all fit in together. The Wellness Center is one part of a comprehensive way of looking at how we reform schools and how we create a safe space for everyone. So again, we can pilot all kinds of programs, and it is through our deep dedication to our students and a love for all of them that we hear their feedback and we do our best with what we have right now. But I really hope that we can devote some time, some careful, considerate time, and time in conjunction with San Marin, because really doing those jobs separately in 2 different places doesn't make so much sense. But doing them together and thinking about how we can leverage our partnerships and how we can leverage your deep expertise and your relationships in the community feels like the next steps. And again, we have lots of little things going on, but I just worry about sustainability and whether we're able to make these promises to kids and our families and then make sure that those promises continue so that they don't feel like they're reactive and responsive to a moment, but not able to continue throughout the years to come. And I think we do have to think very mindfully about how we do that.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, and thank you to both for coming and speaking on that. I think it's important to listen to the student, and the students have obviously come forward from both of these, from all of our schools, and said we need this. So that's a huge eye opener to all of us, and it's important that we listen to that call out, the need that they're asking for, and we will do our best. I know Superintendent Hogaboom's in the loop of all of this, and we will continue to be updated. The board will be updated on that information. So thank you for all speaking this evening, and really appreciate you taking the time out. We take it very seriously, and please, if you need to come back and speak, you're more than welcome to on the same issue if it has to be. So thank you. We will move on with our agenda. The first item is our first staff report. Tim Rocco, who was just up here, our Director of IT, will presenting the E-rate Internet Connectivity and Infrastructure Hardware Update. And board members, you have a copy of the presentation at your table.
Good evening, trustees. Again, Tim Rocco, Director of Technology. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about E-rate, internet connectivity, and infrastructure hardware. As you may remember, I was here not very long ago, and we were talking about our internet connection and what you were able to help me do was approve purchase of a firewall that allowed us to use our entire internet connection. Prior to that, we were using 2 gigabits of a 4 gigabit per second connection, and now we're able to use the entirety of that connection as of about 2 weeks ago. So thank you for that. As we look to the future and how we leverage E-rate, I just want to stop for a second and make sure that I explain what E-rate and the California Teleconnect Fund is to you, because it's probably not something that you talk about at the dinner table every evening. E-rate is a federal program that helps school districts pay for internet connections and the hardware that you use to connect your networks in the schools. The rate that the funding for E-rate is based on your free and reduced population, and for our district, what that amounts to is a 60% discount on the services that we get through E-rate. Now that pertains to the internet connection. There's also, so E-rate is broken down into Category 1 and Category 2. In Category 1, it's that internet connection at a 60% discount for Novato Unified. And Category 2, they award funds in blocks. In this last year, during this school year, we are spending down the last of the funds in the 5-year block that have been awarded to us. We'll see what happens next year and how the federal government wants to work that. There was $330,000 left for us to spend in that Category 2 amount. When I say $330,000, that's the total amount that we could spend and then receive the 60% reimbursement on the funds that we spend on that Category 2. So what we've done with Category 1 this year is with our E-rate consultant, we went out to bid to see what we could do to get a better internet connection. You may remember when I was here for the firewall discussion that the recommended bandwidth for school districts is 1 gigabit per second per 1,000 students. So even with the improvement that we've made from 2 to 4, we're still below where we should be. And especially given the rollout that we've done with the Chromebooks and the expectations that we're putting on our teachers, moving towards that recommendation is important. So with our E-rate consultant, we went out to bid. We were able to write a proposal in such a way that it was very broad in terms of what we were asking for. And that is going to turn around and pay dividends for us. The proposal that I'm recommending to you that we move forward with is one that would allow us to get a dark fiber connection to MCOE, and MCOE is who hosts our internet connection. What that dark fiber connection means is that we have a connection to MCOE that we can start off running as soon as this is implemented at 10 gigabits per second. In addition to that, we're also looking at getting another connection that would be for the purposes of load balancing that would get us another 1 gigabit per second connection that goes directly out to the internet rather than having to go through MCOE. Now, I don't want to, the technical details, I don't know how far you want me to get into. So I think the easiest way to put it is that we'd be able to get 11 gigabits per second once this is all implemented for the school district, and the way that things are changing in the market, we're able to get that for 2/3 the cost of what we're paying now. So in other words, we're getting almost 3 times the speed of what we're paying now for 2/3 the cost of what we're paying now. Okay. So moving on into category 2, where we have this fund balance that we're allowed to spend, where we'll get reimbursed from the feds on that. What we're looking at is spending money that will be in line with what's happening for Measure G. And so with that, we're able to spend about 2/3 of that $330,000 is going to be going for upgraded wireless infrastructure. The current wireless infrastructure that we have is at about 4 years old. Typically, these things age out at about 5 years old, and this gives us a good opportunity to move towards the next generation of wireless technology, which it will be important for us as this is high-density wireless. Basically, we'll be able to serve about 4 times as many devices as we're able to do now. The remainder of those funds, I'm happy to say we got such a good deal on the wireless stuff because the E-rate consultant that we're working with now is really an advocate for us. And so we're going to spend money for battery backup systems that will go into all of our main switch closets. So with that, I have a couple of diagrams here, and I apologize. What you got in the board report, there was a mistake in there with the current network diagram versus the proposed network diagram. Yeah. So the first one that you have is the current. I've already shown some of this to Trustee Millerick. I've generalized a little bit to try and put it in terms that is a little bit more accessible. But basically, you can see how at the moment we have this 4 gigabit connection that I've been talking about that goes down to MCOE, where we're currently getting our internet, and the speeds that are propagated throughout the rest of our network as we get all the way back to the classroom. Working with Measure G, we're moving to a place where we're not going to have only one internet connection, but we'll have 2. And then moving out to the classroom, we're building a network that's going to utilize fiber optics going all the way to the classroom. The classroom itself will be wired still with copper with a switch that goes into the classroom. And as a cost-saving measure, we're trying to utilize existing conduit in the schools because in working with Mike Woolard and his team, we've come to the understanding that conduit in construction is going to be one of the most expensive things. So in terms of trying to cut costs, we're reusing that conduit, and we've come back and we're running fiber optics that go all the way from the main switching closet straight to the classroom. In the past, and in a typical network, you would have an intermediate switching closet. And that intermediate switching closet is getting switched away from having active equipment in there. In other words, something that's plugged in and turned on, something that's susceptible to heat, to something that's passive. It's just a splice of the fiber. A lot of those closets have it's a shared space. It's a janitor's closet oftentimes with mops leaned up against them. So in a situation like that, it's really difficult to take care of that equipment. Moving to this model it not only gives us more throughput, but it's also going to be more cost effective. That's what I have for you in a nutshell. I know it's a lot, and I'm happy to take questions and try to explain whatever.
Trustee Miller and then Trustee Mack.
With your permission, Tim, I'm going to compliment you and add some comments. So can you go back to the first diagram, that one? So if I go on, just give me a minute, because there's been a lot of really hard work. The model that we're looking at here was first put in this district 20 years ago. That was Net Day, when Al Gore invented the internet, and we had parents pulling wires and volunteer electricians and district staff doing punch downs, and we made some choices then that made perfect sense, but we're suffering the legacy of those. And cabling that should only be used, the kind of cable that should like plugged into the computers here, which should only be used inside, was used in conduit that runs outside, and the insulation has failed over 20 years. Is an amazing lifetime, but it's failed. Decisions to run copper instead of fiber was the rational choice then, because we were basically supporting one teacher workstation and a couple of outlets at the side of each classroom, so there was like 3 connections, and then we added a phone and those 4 connections. Today, the load that needs to be supported is 30 Chromebooks, and every kid walks in with an iPhone or a phone in their pocket. There's 30 more devices, and most of them have on a watch that's also an internet device. So in a classroom of 30 students, you got nearly 100 devices that are being supported, compared to the 4 devices that existed 20 years ago. The system has survived as long as it has. Pretty amazing. So the picture that he shows is that 4 gigabit circuit across the top, which we just upgraded by adding the firewall that we approved and got installed. In fact, they bought 2 chassis and 1 piece of software, so if one of the chassis fails, the software gets activated on the other automatically, so you have redundant processing. So the notion of the way we run the school district today, with teachers teaching with Google Docs that exist out on the internet, you need failover capability. You don't need it to be fixed in an hour. You need it to be fixed then, because the teacher's relying on it to do a presentation. So we've done that for firewalls. He's proposing we do that for the internet circuit as well. He's already done it for the head-end equipment. There's dual switches at the center of our network. He's adding reliability so we can support the teachers in the classroom. And I was walking around campus. I was at the, this is unfortunate. I was at the funeral service, and people came up to me and said, "Do you realize how much faster our network is since you got those firewalls in?" Which was a weird conversation to have in the setting, but it was a credit to how much technical debt we had, and how, when we're finally spending the right amount of money, things are moving forward. So this represents a solution that looks like lots of copper wire and a little bit of capacity in each room. And then if you switch to the next slide, 2 circuits coming into the head end, so now you got redundancy. One's 10 gigs, so we're up above the the recommendation, by the way, is obsolete. I was looking on the internet this morning, and the current recommendation is 3 gigabits for every 1,000 kids. So we should be at 24, not at 10. So just to let you know, your data is already obsolete as of this morning at 8 o'clock.
Well, if I may interrupt you for a second, I think that's kind of the beauty of this dark fiber connection, because traditionally in the past, you're always buying internet, and it's lit fiber. So with lit, you go to AT&T and you say, this is how much I need, and this is how much they give you. When we move to dark fiber, the bounds are more connected to the equipment that we put on either end. So if Ross comes to me and says, it changed, we really need to push things forward, then we go and we swap out the equipment that's on either end of the dark fiber, and we can get up to 40 gigabits per second, and we can take up all the internet that MCOE has to offer.
puts us in control at very controlled cost. And then across the bottom, where it goes from the box on the left to the classrooms on the right, in every one of our campuses, we have a room that's either in the library or behind Ray. Who's the principal at Novato High? No, it's not Ray Marrell. Mark. There's a closet that's got the central equipment in it, and that should be air conditioned, and it hasn't been. That should be locked, and it hasn't been. That should have alarms on it, and it hasn't. So with this proposal, we can take that one closet and improve the security and reliability, but all the other closets that are one in each wing of the school now just have fiber that passes through and in a box that's locked in the room, and you never need to service it, because really the fiber goes from that central point clear out to the classroom, because it's an improvement in the standards. So this is the moving 20 years forward, the movement to that capability. And so now the boxes either exist just in the classroom or in the central office, and the ones in the classroom are replaceable components. If one breaks, they call in and there's a spare there, or somebody drives a spare over, puts it in, it automatically configures, and you're back in business. So so the key factors that this gives us, pardon me for going on and on, more reliability, lower operating costs, because now you can maintain the system centrally. You don't have to send somebody in a car over there every time something goes wrong. Higher capacity, and we're meeting the standards that have been set in the industry to go forward. So all in all, this is a 20-year step forward, and Tim's done a great job of pulling together the modern equipment. In fact, the switches that are going in the classroom, the first switches were announced in January of 2019. The new Wi-Fi 6 standards are shipping in January 2019. That's like last week almost. We are right at the leading edge of that technology. If you go to the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona this week that's going on, that technology is what they're featuring, which is the new stuff coming out. So we're right at bleeding edge technology in terms of this, so we should get a good 5 years of service out of this stuff. So Tim, thank you. Pardon me, I'm maybe doing some of your work for you, but I've watched you go through all of this, and I'm impressed with the effort you've put in to bring us a good proposal. So
I'll be completely honest, Ross pushes our thinking for sure.
Yeah.
Trustee Mack?
I'll agree with everything you just said.
Hey,
well, and you know what you're looking at. I mean, you know, Greg, you're in the business.
But I got some questions.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. This is great stuff. I'm very encouraged. But for my just education here, so I'm not entirely clear why in the first place we go through MCOE. Can you explain just the arrangement there, why we don't just go direct out?
Because the internet is insanely cheap from them.
Okay.
Yes.
It's economic.
Yes,
Got
sir.
it.
Yes, sir.
The connect charges are $200.
Okay, got it. So basically, the idea here on this chart is to maximize that as much as we can without completely bringing them to their knees. And then to the extent we go over our 10, we have the ability to go, or is that redundancy if we go down? Is it overflow or redundancy or both?
Both.
Okay, got it. And then two more questions. One, how would you, and anecdotally, how would you compare this network to other districts, either in Marin County or even from your old stomping grounds up north? I mean, where do you think we stand?
I would say you have some serious bragging rights. I mean, if we can bring this to fruition, we are, in a lot of ways, we're trying to bring enterprise level networking to the school environment, and that's not common. Right. I think a lot of places, in working with some of the vendors where we're talking about going fiber all the way to the classroom, there aren't many examples that the vendors that we're working with can find in California that are doing it. The theory that I heard is that the part of the reason for that is because we're so close to Silicon Valley that they want to sell us more switches. But there's some other school districts in some other states that are doing some of this. But I think a lot of it comes back to I mean, once the seed was planted, it became clear that this is the way to go, especially if we're trying to do more with less money. I think we're trying to make decisions, you know, I'll be 100% honest. When at the beginning of this project, it was looking more like what you would see in a traditional network, and it would have been more copper. But we got ideas from a number of different places, Trustee Miller being one of those, and the idea grew, and the more people that looked at it, some really smart people looked at this and were complimentary of the fact that we're thinking this far ahead.
And that's great. And Jim, let's add that to the marketing. Top-notch network. Yeah, recruiting as well. And then the last question regarding it was mentioned how the standard is already ratcheting it up. We've hit one standard, and standards always go up. Based on that, how much time do you think we've bought? Another 4 or 5 years, 2 or 3 before we and the good news is in terms of upgrading, it's pretty straightforward this time. It's just devices on each end, right?
Yeah, I think that therein again is the beauty of the fiber is because a lot of this stuff is really the idea is to try and get 20 years out of the
fiber,
the fiber itself.
Right.
Now that being said, the equipment is going to change. And even these wireless access points that Trustee Millerick was talking about a second ago, it was just announced. It's just coming out.
18 months.
Well, 5 years for that Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
Initially it was part of my hope. We're looking at indoor and outdoor Wi-Fi because we have these beautiful campuses, and if I'm a teacher in one of these classrooms and I have all these Chromebooks and I have the opportunity to get outside, I want to be able to take the class outside too. But the timing with E-rate and the way that we have to spend our funds against what's available in the market, I can't bring us to purchase the outdoor Wi-Fi equipment right now because this new standard is coming around, and
Sure.
it's for the outdoor access points. It'll be available a month or two from now, and it just doesn't line up with us. So we're going a little bit bigger on the indoor Wi-Fi. We'll get enough Wi-Fi right now to redo the Wi-Fi infrastructure at secondary. So because we're not going to purchase the outdoor stuff as much as I was hoping that we would, we might go into Hamilton and start working on the Wi-Fi there, as an example.
Okay, thank you.
All right, nobody else? Trustee Cooper?
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. This is pretty exciting. I just had a quick question about timing. When, to complete this great work?
Okay, so
to start and then end?
Yes, sir. Assuming that I'll take the internet connection to MCOE first. Assuming that that gets approved, we would be looking at about between, I'll say 14 months before we can actually start using that. Okay. Because we're working with Sonic on this proposal, and Sonic, I think, is motivated because they want to get into the market down here. So construction has to happen for some of these lines, but that is right in line with my prior experience in my last district. The other pieces, parts, the Wi-Fi and some of the internal wiring, that's more connected to Measure G, and a lot of that work would happen over the summer and would be ready for the beginning of the school year.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Miller.
Okay, Trustee Aguila, and then we'll move on.
Obviously, we're still going to be filtering, and it just is everything's so much better, so much quicker, so much faster, and everything. And we're still it's going to be easier for the kids to navigate and quicker. And also, just wanted to make sure that we're still going to be taking care of the filtering and.
Yeah, the filtering is something that we have to do, but particularly after listening to some of the comments this morning, or just a little bit ago, you know, I think it really does bring home
Mm-hmm.
the need to broaden the conversation among staff and to see what we can do for the community.
And so, I mean, that would just include, you know, things that we need to watch out for, you know, porn and how to make bombs and whatever things our kids are looking at, what, you know, just making sure that we still keep an eye on it.
Yeah, for sure. And even one of the folks that made a comment earlier, I mean, you should know that, I mean, maybe at the elementaries, they're not seeing it, but the secondary principals will tell you that they're getting emails pretty much on the regular from my staff now when they're seeing searches that indicate anything to do with self-harm or a variety of issues.
All right, that wraps this up. Thank you so much, Tim. Appreciate the easy to understand board cover. That was perfect. If I can understand that, you've done a great job.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Just to the board, we have several items to go here, but I want to, since we have 3 people here for the JROTC, I want to stick to their time, so 8:45. So we'll make sure we stick to that, and we'll come back to you guys at 8:45 and make sure you get to speak at that time. But we're going to keep moving forward on our staff reports. College and career readiness, this is with Amy Carter and Jen Larson. Good evening. So tonight, Amy and myself are here to give you a little bit more information and follow up on the conversations that we've been having around college and career readiness. Specifically going to be talking about A through G and CTE pathways. As you know, career and college readiness is now one of the indicators on the California dashboard, and it is the way that each LEA is judged as how successful are they in their district. California identifies 6 different markers as far as what does college and career readiness look like, and how can a student show that they are proficient or that they are ready for college and career. These are the 6 markers. You'll notice that there are 4 that we don't spend a whole lot of time talking about, and that's why we wanted to expand the information that we're talking about tonight so that there's an understanding of how all of these items work together. So the first is our CASP testing, our Smarter Balance Assessment. Students need to get a 3 or higher, both ELA and math in their 11th grade assessment. AP exams is another way to light up that marker. If they can get a 3 or higher on 2 different AP exams. The other one is the IB, or International Baccalaureate exams. We don't offer that in Novato, but some students do come to us from other districts who possibly have been in a program similar to that, and they need a 4 or higher in 2 exams in that area. The fourth way is dual enrollment, so 2 semesters or 3 quarters of college coursework, and we do have really strong partnerships with College of Marin, so we have quite a few students who are enrolled or also taking courses on our campuses, but getting college credit for those courses. And then the 2 that we will be highlighting tonight, but also the 2 that we spend most of our time focusing on as far as data collection, are A through G requirements and CTE pathways. And the highlight I want us to notice on this, and the reason we're really looking at the details of these 2, is that just being A through G complete, just completing a CTE pathway isn't enough. They also need 1 additional marker. So it's important to remember as we're looking at A through G requirements that they also have to be proficient in Smarter Balance, or they also have to be dual enrolled, or they also have to be taking AP. If they're in a CTE pathway and they earn their C- in a capstone, they also need to be proficient in Smarter Balance, so on and so forth. And so tonight we want to talk a little bit about how all those work together and where we as a team and as an organization want to put our efforts in moving forward.
Just as a reminder, you've seen this graphic a number of different times. This is specific to college career readiness. You can see we're right there in the yellow, just under 50% for our entire student body. If you look over at our student groups, you'll see we have English learners and students with disabilities in the red. We have Hispanic and socially economically disadvantaged students in the orange. We do not have any students in the yellow, but we do have white students in the green. And then you can see that the blue has no students, and there's no preference for the rest of the groups that are identified there. All right, so as a Nevada Unified School District's student, you really have two main doorways in order to light up their dashboard: the UCA through G and the CTE pathway, notice +1. So Amy's gonna come on up, she's gonna talk about A through G, and then I'll come back to follow up with CTE.
So as Jen's mentioned, the state of California is giving us 6 ways to light up that child's little light bulb on the dashboard. And you know, we're sort of sitting in the crow's nest as we've heard the declarative statements around A through G for 2025. And we thought this would be a great opportunity to sort of forecast for you sort of the complexity of this issue and some of the things that we're going to have to be thinking about as a system to make this successful. So just as a reminder, as a member of Promise, NUSD pledged along with other Marin school districts to implement that A through G alignment in 2025, and I believe that's this year's 6th graders. A little bit of history around the A through G requirements. A lot of this comes to the forefront because California does lag behind other states in our requirements for some of these areas. For mathematics, California lag behind the states in what they're asking for a high school diploma. The UC and the CSU system is asking for those 3 years. Most of the rest of the United States is asking for those 3 years. So we're looking at bringing Nevada Unified up from that 2-year to more that national expectation level of 3 years. It's very similar with the science. Right now, the UC and CSU system is identifying 2. 2. The state of California gives us 2. Here in Nevada, we know we're at 3 for our freshman class, and we're hearing through the pipeline that the UC and CSU system is also contemplating and having those discussions about making sure that students come to them with that 3-year requirement. English, of course, state of California asks for 3, US is 4, and there's some parity on social science. So statewide, the number of UC-CSU eligible graduates has grown 24% over the past decade. This is a metric that a lot of us believe in and are lobbying for. And with districts that adopt that A through G curriculum and expectations, seeing some of the largest increases in students that are hitting that metric. Many districts have incorporated the A through G sequence into graduation, as we're sort of looking at exploring. In 2017, it showed that 51%, including some of the state's largest districts, are requiring students to complete the A through G sequence. And districts with large shares of high-need students, economically disadvantaged and English language learner students, we're seeing this in Santa Rosa, are more likely to be the districts that do adopt A through G. Jen kind of told you the story behind this. As we look at our dashboard, this is just another way to kind of break that out. You can see that our white students are just about 4 times more likely to hit that A through G expectation than some of our other subgroups. All right, so other districts are doing this. I've provided a little list for you. We all know that Santa Rosa made headlines last year with their change, expecting the freshman class that's starting this year in their district to hit those A through G markers. So we're in good company. But it's also important to remember that there are a lot of lessons in the rollout, and we want to be very thoughtful about how we do this to make sure we're doing this successfully. Research has shown that it's very important to have counselors and college support agencies to support students to be successful. It's in the research that we've read, it talks about how it's really important to not underestimate the amount of tutoring, after-school programs, teacher training, and other infrastructures that are required to help the high volume of students who may fail under these higher academic expectations so that they don't fall behind. You'll remember last meeting I talked to you about the freshman failure rate, which hovers around 20% as soon as that child fails a class. Now, these are the kind of supports that we're going to have to make sure exist in the system to get them back on track, particularly with these higher requirements. There are districts who have gone down this road and made U-turns, and the research is saying that some graduation rates remain flat. Other districts headed down this road and decided to shift back, and they cite giving students more flexibility for a variety of student needs. And other districts have made that U-turn from A through G because of the high demand for CTE and choosing to pursue that other doorway as well. So there's a lot of sort of challenging stories out there for districts that have gone down this road, and we just want to be mindful of that and make sure that we're learning from those lessons and we're all in alignment about the challenges that are in store for us with this change and preparing accordingly. The San Jose Unified in 2013 report in the LA Times found that many Latino students who were struggling to pass those A through G courses sidestepped the rigorous standards by transferring to the district's alternative schools, which were exempt from that A through G requirement. So, you know, there are systems that if you haven't really thought this through and prepared for it, we see these students kind of escape. San Jose's alternative schools enrolled by nearly 50% more Latinos compared to traditional high schools. So, you know, that's something to be really mindful of. We all see this as an equity issue, but let's make sure that we're doing this in such a way that we're not creating an ostracized group that gets fast-tracked to alternative ed. And unfortunately, the San Jose story is not a unique one. Yep, Jen's going to kind of break down how these graduation requirements play out.
So what we wanted to try to give you a visual of what our current requirements are and what it would look like if we were to move towards this in the future. So currently you see that we have 4 English. Now, I should also clarify, and this is also in your board cover, there's 3 different markers that we're really talking about here. There's the California requirements, which include PE, health, econ, and government. Then there's Novato. We are required to do all of California, plus our own local requirements. And then there's UC. UC doesn't require the California. So when we're looking at this, we're just comparing our current NUSD requirements and what it would look like if we move towards A through G in addition to the California requirements. So as you can see, we currently require 4 years of English, 3 years of social studies, 2 years of math, 3 years of science, 2 years of PE, 2 years, and this one is a little bit tricky, 2 years of a language or visual performing arts. We do not require to have both. And then we do require 1 full year, half the year is CCR, half the year is health. If we were to move towards A through G as our graduation requirements, where we would really be changing is in math, and this would be a significant shift for us and the one we would probably want to start preparing for sooner than later, which is moving to a 3rd year of math. And then you'll see down here, although we only go from 2 to 3 years in language of APA, what that means is a 2 years requirement for language other than English. Currently, that is not a requirement. We have about 54% of our students currently enrolled in a second language. So twofold. One is we would have an extremely higher rate of students needing another language. We would need different offerings besides just the current Spanish and French, and that is the area where we have the most challenging time staffing. So we would need to also look for partners and alternative ways to be able to provide that kind of system.
So what we really want to forecast for the board is that this does place our district in a place where we are making difficult choices. As a district, we have that extra health class. Is that something that's important to us that we wish to hold on to? As a district, we have the extra science class. Is that something that we're committed to? And every time that we place one of these firm building blocks in there, as Jen showed, those really tend to squeeze out some of our electives, our opportunities to have a child recover credits while they're still attending school. Those get sort of things that we have got to push to alternative ways to look at that. So, you know, it does kind of paint wall to wall a child's schedule. And, you know, with so many requirements on the plate, it really leaves very little additional space for electives, CTE, AVID. And, you know, that puts us in the position where, what if I'm a theater kid that really wants those 4 theater classes? What if I'm an AVID kid who wants those 4 years of AVID? But you can see just numerically that if a child falls into that freshman failure rate, where now I'm one of the 25% of freshmen that fail a course, now I've got to retake that course, which means I can no longer be a 4-year AVID student. Or it means that we expand the children's schedule to 7 classes a day, and then we'd have to staff accordingly, and you get where I'm going with this. So, you know, this is something that I really want us to all be mindful about. We are committed to do the work if that is the will of the board, but, you know, we do want to forecast the things that we're going to have to prepare for and the conversations that we're having as a team around how to deliver on this. All right, so NUSD, as I mentioned, will have to make sure that we're providing multiple ways for students to make up those failed courses. We're going to have to make sure that what we have in place in NUSD helps us to monitor student data so that we are understanding in September and in October where our children are struggling, where they've fallen off track for passing those courses, and mobilize around interventions. It's just going to be imperative that we do so. Transitioning to, let's see, I think we've already covered this. All right, and then another decision that, you know, will eventually come to the board is what do we define as passing? UC-CSUs only accept A through G courses with a C or better. Most California districts with A through G policies, about 72%, require that C or better in every course. And the remainder are moving forward with a D. So that's something that we're going to have to really decide in Novato Unified what our metrics is. Again, what are we going to do when student fails? What about individuals who have learning disabilities? We're going to want to make sure that there's multiple pathways for students to still find success in our system. And I think Santa Rosa has done some really great work around this, and we'll be able to benefit from that in that regard. A happy, bright spot, San Francisco Unified, where the class of 2014 was the first required to complete A through G coursework, saw its graduation rate actually increase that year to 83%, up from 81. Incredibly impressive. The dropout rate for Latino and Black students did increase about 1 percentage point for each group, which is a lot better than a lot of the other California school districts that have done this. And at the same time, the district saw a 25% increase in the number of those Latino students graduating UC-CSU eligible. What is unique about what San Francisco Unified did was that they really mobilized around this. They made sure that they increased the number of counselors. They made sure that they increased the intervention programs. They also created multiple opportunities for students to make up those credits, including make sure there was online courses and Saturday school. So, you know, we have a shining example of how to do it right and do it well. It also requires a lot of manpower and a lot of system structures to pull that off, but, you know, we do have something that we can learn a lot from the work of San Francisco Unified. To sort of contrast, San Diego Unified, the class of 2016 was the first to complete the A through G coursework, and they saw the graduation rate decrease to 80% compared to 88% in 2015. And about 10% of the students who would have been in the graduating class left for non-district or charter schools. So It's a sobering data point and one I want us to be mindful of. And then in 2017, they had a lot of bad press because of what happened the year before. The graduation went up to 91% in San Diego. And this was done by revamping all the courses that the high school offered, allowing students, you'd be able to test out of certain requirements. And they also did lose low-performing students again to charter schools. In fact, only 65% of students who had started their freshman year in San Diego Unified remained in a district-managed high school. So they had an entire third of their student population who did not experience success and were in charter schools. So we do not want that to be the Novato Unified School District story. And I simply, our hope here tonight is to forecast the complexity of this issue for you, to make sure that we're all thinking around how to make this successful and where we really want to plant our feet as a district. Of those graduates in San Diego, 20% of those graduates had to take an online class to graduate. That's complete parity with what we see in Novato Unified, with a 25% freshman failure rate. It has to be made up somewhere, and that's really kind of the most expeditious and affordable way to do that, because you've created a student schedule that's just wall to wall. All right, so that brings us to the other doorway that the state of California has offered us, and I'm gonna turn the time over to Jen to kind of talk a little bit about that CTE doorway.
Okay, so I was here and did a CTE update just maybe a month ago, and so I wanted to dig into what our CTE programs look like and how that lights up that college and career readiness marker. So as you know, California defines CTE as 2 or more courses in an industry-aligned pathway and has to end with a capstone. There needs to be a completer course at the end of it. The student has to get a C- or better in that completer course. So they need to attend at least 2 courses in a row that are consistent, and then they have to pass the final course in that the progression. Currently, we offer 7 pathways in 5 different industry sectors. All of the industry sectors, and I'm going to actually probably jump ahead on here, all of the industry sectors that we offer here either align with a workforce labor need that is in our region, or with a college and, a CTE pathway that is offered at COM. So the pathways aren't just because we like them. It's based on not only student interest, but we also want to make sure that we're offering pathways that are going to lead to a livable wage potential for students that want to stay in this region. NUSD defines the complete pathway a little bit differently than the state of California. When we're designing a pathway for our students, we want to make sure that there's a minimum of 3 years in the progression. Part of this has to do with the funding we receive. We are currently receiving 3 grants for CTE. It funds a great deal of what we're able to offer, and all of those grants require us to have 3 courses: an introduction, a concentrator, and a completer. The only exception to that is at Marin Oaks, because it's only a 2-year program, that we're allowed to have just the introduction and the completer course in that progression. As I said, all of our pathways are aligned to regional workforce needs. And then what is very unique in Novato, and I think something that we need to be really proud of, but also make sure that we are aware of, is that all of our courses are A through G approved. So when you're in a CTE pathway, you are also taking an A through G approved course. They're one and the same. And part of that is because this isn't a new need. We've been preparing for making this shift for several years now. And in our desire to have all of our high school courses A through G approved, we wanted to make sure that our CTE courses were in that same level of rigor, and also we're going to provide opportunities for our students to be getting experience in the Common Core state standards as well, which is what this requires. So one of the items that I think we want to do in our community is really shifting the dialogue about CTE pathways. This is an incredibly viable and a great way to mark or to show success in college readiness. We work a lot with College of Marin and their CTE pathway coordinators around how to shift this dialogue and make sure that not only are students and families aware of what's being offered and how those transpire to the college, but also that they are highly rigorous courses and that they are not just seen as feeders to maybe an AA or a certificate, but they are actually quite valuable to students who are looking to go to a four-year college. Just because they're maybe going to be dual enrolled with College of Marin now, College of Marin is equally excited about the idea of these students being prepared for a four-year college if that's the path that they choose. So in shifting that dialogue to remind us that they are incredibly rigorous courses, they are aligned with Common Core state standards in both ELA and mathematics, and that all students in our programs have access to workforce experiences. The three main ways our students are a part of that are through job shadows, career exploration academies, and internships. Our current pathways are media and design arts, performing arts, product design, biotechnology, patient care, food service and hospitality, and networking. This is a graphic to show you how these courses are set up and where we are in the sequence of creating complete pathways. Our goal as a system is to have complete pathways for each one of these that not only has a 3-year progression, but also either ends in college credit or ends in a certificate. So you can see on this list where we are. About half of our pathways are currently complete. We are currently in the 2nd year of the new media arts program at San Marin High School. So that will be complete. They'll have their current group is sophomores, so they've got 2 more years till that's complete. Performing arts, that's a new one. We currently have a new drama teacher at San Marin who is a CTE course teacher, and so we are going to have all 4 of those courses CTE approved by the end of this year, and so next year those will be complete. Product design, we do have a complete progression there. We have not been offering it because of some credentialing issues, and that will start back up next year. So I'm glad to have that and be able to re-offer that to students. Biotechnology is in its 4th year and has a complete pathway. Patient care is in its 2nd year. This is an exciting one. It is fully articulated. All 4 years will be dual enrolled with the college. And we just got a grant and a partnership with College of Marin that all of the seniors that when they become seniors, so our current sophomores 2 years from now, will have the choice to also earn their CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant, and their HHA, their Home Health Care Assistant license, which is a very exciting prospect. Also very expensive if they were doing that outside of the system, so fantastic. Food service, also complete. 2-year program will be articulated with COM as soon as COM finishes their pathway. And we are hoping to expand that to have 3 years and have satellite programs at both San Marin and Novato High, so they can take advantage of that program and the kitchen that we've been working on over at Marin Oaks. And then Cisco Academy and networking. On the far side, you can see the number of students who are currently accessing these programs, the largest of which in media and design arts. Keep in mind that that represents quite a few pathways. So digital arts and photography, film and video, multimedia at both schools. I'm forgetting one. But there are a number of pathways both within MSA and over at San Marin High School. And just some numbers. Our internships, this was all of last year's. We had 72 students participate in full internships. We had 110 students participate in job shadows. And we had 101 students complete one of the Career Exploration Academies. This is a program that MCOE offers. It's a county-wide program on almost all of the breaks from school, so spring break, February break, and over the summer. They offer career exploration workshops. They're 1 or 2 week programs. And students have the opportunity to go and work with and get more experience in the field. One of our goals is to make sure that we have offerings in all 3 of these areas for every pathway that we offer. Currently, if you were to look at our list, you'll notice that the majority of these are in healthcare or in education. We don't necessarily offer an education pathway. Obviously, we are invested in that, and we want to make sure they still have those opportunities, but we still need to design internships, job shadows, and exploration in hospitality, in biotechnology, and in media arts. And we have a few here and there, but not as systematic as the rest. So that's one of our next steps. All right, I'm going to hand this back over to Amy.
All right, so our hope tonight was to just really inform you about the complexity of this issue and sort of help you understand how all these pieces are ones that we're going to have to figure out how to put together. A year from now, I will be before you really asking for some firm direction about your will, because that's when the class of 2025 will be heading into their 8th grade year. And probably the best place to start is making sure that that 8th grade year, we start looking at getting foreign language there. It'll drive our hiring practices. It'll drive our multiple tiered systems of support. So we're going to spend the year really looking at a lot of research. You can see we've already been delving into this. We'll be thinking through how to create a robust infrastructure to achieve this goal, but we'll be coming to you in a year from now really looking for some direction on this. Again, there are some difficult decisions that are just baked in it. A lot of it has to do with individuals' philosophies about education and what we're here for. And, you know, we're going to have those conversations and really land on a firm spot to be of the best service to ensure that the class of 2025 is ready for that A through G, if that's the will of the board. Questions?
All right, lots to process here. We did not get this PowerPoint, and I wish we had ahead of time, just to put that out there as speaking for the board. It's important that we get these things ahead of time and we can process them and come ready to, I know we've heard this over quite a bit, but for me, I would be much more ready and have more comments to it.
We're hoping that we can plan a workshop with the board in the next
that would be fabulous.
Few months
Yes.
to really unpack this. We've got a lot of research we can bring to you, and we're just hoping for kind of a teaser tonight. So thank you.
That helps me.
Yes.
process.
Just weigh your appetite, get your mind thinking about this issue, because we've been doing a lot of thought of it upstairs, and we're ready to roll up our sleeves.
Trustee Cooper and then Trustee Mack.
Thank you very much. This is exciting, and I know we're going in the right direction. I know it's the right thing to do. I'm just a little overwhelmed by the amount of work that's in front of you both and all of us. And I'm afraid of failure. Mm-hmm. And what do you suppose, you talked about a couple districts. The ones that stand out for me are San Francisco and then San Diego, both ends of the spectrum.
Right.
So what do you suppose San Diego did or San Francisco did on the reverse that San Diego did not do? Why were they successful in a nutshell?
I think San Francisco was very serious about the planning around it. The little bit of reading that I've done around San Diego, it feels like it was more of a political, flashy headline without the hard work underneath it. We're prepared to do that hard work underneath it, and we want to make sure that we're all on the same page around that. That you have to be incredibly deliberate to make this deliverable, and I think we want Novato Unified to definitely fall in the category of San Francisco. We've got a great partner north of us who we're interfacing with. We're learning a lot from what they're experiencing, and we're ready to take everything Santa Rosa is learning and make sure that we do it with the best hope of success.
At least as good or better.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Trustee Mack?
Yeah, I very much appreciate this. I'm going to try to keep this quick to get us back on schedule here. But one quick question, and I think you're aware of this, but just want to make sure we don't lose sight of the families and the kids involved in this and how they're making effectively a life decision in 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And, how can we, one, help facilitate that? To make sure that they're doing an informed decision, not a trendy decision, or to be with their friends. And 2, options, strategies for, oops, this isn't working for me sophomore year, I need to switch, or even freshman year. And I know you're probably thinking about that, but I'd just like to emphasize it because I've been part of that. Mm-hmm. And it's not easy. as I've shared with you in the past. So
Yep.
that's all.
Trustee Miller?
I'm excited that in Novato, we always figure out a way to go back and say, what more can we do for our community? What more can we do for our students? And that we have a good, strong CTE program envisioned. You can partner with College of Marin and others. And that we have a good, solid academic program, UC, A to G, targeted, is really exciting. And that we've looked at other people succeed and fail by having everybody move to a charter school, fail by grades collapsing, fail by enrollment collapsing, succeed by other measures, and that your first reaction is early intervention is the only hope to make this work. Because I think that's exactly right. If you're not paying attention, we can find many examples of where we weren't paying attention and the programs collapse all around the state of California. My caution that I would like to put on this, and it's for us as a decision-making body, is as we add additional requirements to our programs, there are students who will want to take 7 courses a day or 8 courses a day. Every one of those sessions is a child sitting in a seat learning great and wonderful things, but there's a teacher getting paid for that. And so the more sections that we teach, the less we're able to afford the overall program. Somebody taking 8 classes, coming in a period early and staying a period late, is taking money away from the child who needs the tutoring session and doesn't ask, or we let them slide off the chart. So I think we need to get really clear about the level of service we as an institution can offer. I heard interesting discussions about using online courses. That's the first time here in a public school we're saying education isn't sitting in a seat. There's something else, there's some other way that we can deliver it. That I heard Saturday school, which I've heard before, but it's always been a disciplinary issue, not an educational issue. So I think we have a significant dollar issue that we have to resolve on how this is going to work in terms of the maximum number of units any child can take. And if we have to understand if we're going to add additional requirements to graduation, there's cost to that. Maybe what we need to do in the budget crisis we're facing, and we are facing a significant crisis in this district, having run in the red for 3 years, we maybe need to reduce the number of units we offer. We need to be thinking that as a possible alternative to how we solve our budget crisis. This is just the opposite of what we've heard, not do more. We have less money. We need to figure out how to do less as part of our conversation. And this, as exciting as this may be not what we have to do. We may be doing just the opposite of what we heard tonight. We have to start thinking as fiscally responsible first and academic programs, because if we're not fiscally responsible, the state will take us over. We will have the same experiences that Oakland had, which is they came in, half the students moved to charter schools. Who was left then had to fund the debt that the state put on them, a $100 million debt to clean up the mess. And the remaining students are paying it back, and the teachers are on strike, or where they've settled. But all of that pain and suffering in the Oakland community will be ours if we don't get our fiscal house in order. So I'm thrilled about this. We have to be able to do it in a budget we can afford. So thank you for the presentation. It was wonderful.
All right, Trustee Gasson.
Thank you for all this information. This is all kind of not there yet for me, so it's all new. So I appreciate that, and also for you acknowledging, because I hadn't seen this, so it's a lot for me to process. But so I look forward to another time to talk about it. Having said that, there was a couple things that I noted that I just wanted to comment on, and one is the CTE. And again, I'm not at this level yet, but I think that's something I really like how it's all structured, and I don't know how much that's out in the community that there is that. I think it's a huge positive and something to be out in the community to, say why make a decision to stay with, our school. The other question I had, and I actually am going back in my head a long time ago about what did I take when I was in high school, and so I don't know how it deviates from where we're going now, but in my head, one of my questions, I understand that was the Marin promise to go with the A to G as it was structured. I'm wondering, is there some middle ground? Is that even possible when you are working on this? I like the idea of more math. I loved doing language, but I'm just, I don't know, throwing that out if that's even a consideration.
Yeah,
to-
we're really probably the strongest voice at this point at the table with the Marin Promise group, and so that is something.
All right, let's wrap this. This work in that group, maybe, if that's a possibility.
Yep, they'll dovetail eventually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So we have a lot to do. I understand that, and you guys are doing your homework. And it was great to bring this to us.
Thank
It was
you.
just a lot. Appreciate that. Okay, so board, I would really like to get to the JROTC action item. They've been waiting patiently, so we have Colonel Clark and Sarge here, and Susan Miller's here as well, and we have the 2 MOUs that will be presented to the board.
So thanks for having us. Really appreciate you guys hanging around and being here tonight. You look sharp as usual, so I appreciate that. Most of you know Sarge. He's been kind of the bedrock of the program for the last 13 years. Thank you very much. We have a new colonel this year, Patrick Clark, and he's been a great addition to the program. Derek is the board rep to this kind of group, and we meet with them every year. You guys know Susan from Building Better Citizens, and so we had our meeting and went over a lot of stuff. Usually we bring this to you a little bit later to kind of give you an update on what's going on, and I just want to be clear that there's 2 items before you, and we decided to bring them both at the same time. One is a memorandum of agreement with the Air Force, which is kind of new and we haven't seen it in a while, and the other is the usual MOU that we have with the Building Better Citizens. So just to be kind of clear on that, I think President Butler's going to take those separate, but I just want to let you guys know that we appreciate so much all that you do, the leadership of our kids, the scholarships that our kids have gotten, all the hard work that you guys have done, and thanks for being here.
Hopefully we'll keep this somewhat short. So great introduction, and what we can go to the next slide here, and the program update here. Every 3 years we get inspected by what's called Air University, which is actually the Air Force JROTC is well supported. Air University is what's under AETC, actually includes colonels, becoming generals. So there's a lot of effort. It's really pretty impressive that we're kind of tied into the regular Air Force in that respect. And in that respect, we had an inspector come down from Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama, and he did a one-day inspection on the 11th January, and he found that we meet standards. Our excellent ratings right from the rating chart is he liked the classroom facilities, drill area, was really impressed with the cadets and the school, appearance of the instructors, I guess, and the ownership that the cadets showed. We did have some deficiencies. They were deemed minor deficiencies. Wings is a computer system that the Air Force runs. It's kind of cumbersome, but we haven't been utilizing it as much as we should have. And the Air Force ROTC is a cadet-run program, so cadets actually have to come in and, as part of their duties, put in PT results, put in information into Wings of what they did, service hours that they did, and he found some discrepancies that we weren't really getting credit for what we were doing, and which is important because they actually aggregate those numbers and they report to Congress, and that becomes part of the reason for the budget for the Air Force JROTC nationally. And so we need to tighten our shot group on that. He looked at our cadet guide, and we were missing a clear policy on reserve cadets, and we needed to define hazing policy a little bit more, which we did. And my mistake here, we were missing a 7-year curriculum plan. And this is the curriculum plan on the bottom that's been rectified. It was always there. It just wasn't shown. It's to make sure that no cadet gets the same class the next year or the year after. Okay, so nothing is repeated. This is about the every so often, and it's kind of hard to tell when. But it appears the last one, I think, was in 2013. There's a memorandum of agreement that the Air Force sends to all the schools, not just ours, but all the schools, and they have updates. And this year was the year. They'd like it signed by the end of this month, and then it will go into effect 1 July. They put some language in there which clarifies some items that they thought needed clarifying. But there's no real big changes on that. And we had, as I think you have copies, right? So yeah, so the changes are in there. And now I'll turn it over to Sarge, and he'll cover the vectors for the future.
Thank you, Colonel. So our biggest thing that we need to focus on at this point moving forward is our enrollment. We did have some issues the last couple of years with access to the middle school students and 8th grade assemblies. That's historically in the past has been the greatest tool we've had to be able to get information to the 8th graders to let them know what it is we really do. And so by not having that access for a couple of years as much as we needed to, our freshman classes the last 2 years were very small, and that's the reason that our enrollment is as low as it is this year, and we started at 61. As most of you know, we need to have 100 students in the program for it to be viable in the eyes of the Air Force, and so 61 is a very low number. So this year we were granted access to 2 of the 3 middle schools, San Jose and Hamilton. Those were coordinated by Christy Stalker when she was the administrator with us, and before she could get to the Sinaloa portion of, and by the way, I'm sorry, it's not just our program, but all of the special programs at Novato High School were on display for the 8th grade students. So we were not able to get to Sinaloa yet with all of those programs on display. So that is something we would like to do. It's unlikely that we'll be able to do that before they choose classes on March 20th because it's quickly approaching. So we're doing a shadow day this Thursday. We've got, I'm going to guess at least a dozen students that are going to be coming over for that. They can help spread the word to the other 8th graders about what we're doing. At the day that we did at San Jose, our primary feeder, we had a tremendous response to our presentation. We had a table set up. We had a lot of students coming to see us. So my expectation is that our freshman class next year is going to be much larger just based on that and the response at open house as well. So I think we're moving in the right direction on that. We just need to continue to have that kind of support from the middle schools going forward. A couple of programs that really make us attractive to a lot of students, excuse me, the first one is Civil Air Patrol. It's a local organization. Captain Dave Nicholson is the commander of the Civil Air Patrol program, and they're starting to get some funding from the Air Force for the Civil Air Patrol to be able to take some of our students up flying. That funding is good for our students, but it's also good for Civil Air Patrol because that's funding from the Air Force that allows them to maintain their aircraft and get more flying hours. So it's a win-win all the way around that is coming through for us. In addition to that, Captain Nicholson is going to be coming to the classroom to provide some, because he is a pilot, and neither one of us are, he's going to be coming to the classroom to give some pilot perspective on our aerospace science curriculum. So that's a great benefit for us to have as well. We also have a new program that started last year called the Flight Academy Program. And this is a program where junior ROTC cadets apply to be able to go over the summer and get their private pilot's license at a university at the Air Force's expense with no military obligation. Last year, there were 125 cadets chosen. One of our students was chosen, Michael Fretz, and he went there to, I think it was University of North Dakota, and got his pilot's license there.
And then he's continuing to fly on occasion with Civil Air Patrol in order to maintain currency with that. This year we did have applicants apply. The number has doubled to 250 in the slots that they have. Unfortunately, none of our students were chosen this year. I think it's becoming more and more competitive as more and more schools figure out what it is that they have available to them. The number is going to double again to 500 next year. And that number is expected to continue to grow for at least a couple more years beyond that. The reason behind this and the reason this is free is because there's a shortage of pilots in the world, not just in the military, in the civilian world. And so this is the Air Force's answer to that, to help. It'll help them as well, but just by giving more students access to aviation knowledge and the ability to become a pilot will help not just the military, as I said, but our civilian sector as well. So going forward, this program can be a magnet for those students that are interested in an aviation career. There were some discussions on the next subject concerning the new facility when we had our meeting last week with Susan Miller and Derek Nell. Mr. Hogeboom was there, Susan Miller, Colonel and I. And it was on the new facility. So we're excited that the new facility that's being proposed for the junior ROTC is something that is going to come to fruition, hopefully during my time here. And I think that will be another thing that will enhance recruiting as well. Seeing something that is dedicated just for us gives us a bigger sense of legitimacy. So that's one thing I'm really excited about. In addition to just the building, we're also looking at a covered drill pad that's going to be built along with it. And of course, it says up there, drill pad dual use opportunities. This is something that's not just going to be used for us. In the past, historically, for drill and for our fitness day, we've used the PE department's space in the gyms and the tennis courts, up on the football field. And of course, any space that's designated specifically for ROTC would be available to the other programs of the campus as well. Just like the PE department has the first right of refusal for their space, for us to use it. Naturally, since this is being something provided for us, we would have first right of refusal as well, but we want to be good neighbors with you guys, just as everybody on the campus has been for us. So we want to emphasize that covered area is something that can be used by a lot of the other programs at the school. Also, one of the other things that was discussed is a possibility of creating in the new facility, after it's built, a space designated for a high-end flight simulator type setup. Right now we've got the Microsoft version of Flight Simulator on a computer with a little joystick and a couple pedals. We're talking about something a little bit with a little more meat to it that would excite the students and also attract more students to give us more legitimacy in the aviation side of our curriculum as well. Finally, BBCA partnerships and boosters. We held a Vets and Cadets event, which we have historically done about every other year for the last few years, and prior to that every year. It became very cumbersome to do, so that's why we went to every other year. It's a big event for us, and it's something that honors local veterans, and it highlights what our cadets can do. They run the event from beginning to end. Now this year was really special. It was the 100-year anniversary of Armistice Day. And so one of our huge supporters in our program decided he wanted to really support and recognize that 100-year anniversary and the local veterans. And he put on a huge event following the standard Veterans Day event that we have in San Rafael. And we had, I think the number is close to 600 people come to this event. We had a Navy SEAL who was a guest speaker. We had, I mean, it was a show. It was a full-on show, catered meal. It was a first-class event front to back. And I'm proud to say that our students were the MCs, and they had significant roles involved throughout the entire presentation of this. They introduced everybody who came up on stage. They had a POW MIA ceremony. And so it really highlighted the students the product that we create in our program. Our students are professional, they're well-spoken, and they are not afraid to step up to a challenge. And so I'm gushing here, but they made me very proud at what they were able to accomplish in this very, very stressful environment. Imagine how many high school students, percentage-wise, are willing to get up and speak in front of 600 people, adults. And the picture that you see there is actually provided by the benefactor of the event. He also provided flags and a commemorative Veterans Day coin for every veteran in the room. And our students were tasked with providing those by presenting those to the veterans. And there were several veterans in the room that were tearing up at how much this meant to them. And so by our students being able to see that, it gave them a bigger appreciation of what it is they really mean to the local community, to the veterans, and what the veterans mean to us. And so that was an event that made me very proud as well of their accomplishments and what they gained from it. So this is a snapshot of just some of the things that we have that goes on in our program. And like I said, I'm proud to be a part of it. And thank you.
All right, thank you. Questions, comments from the board? Trustee Gila?
I just wanted to give my thoughts about this program and how, we're talking about all these issues, negative things that are happening, suicide and bullying and harassing and all these things. And I'm just very proud that the JROTC is able to take some of their students and empower them, which is by engaging them and inspiring them. And so that's what we're about. And so so I'm in favor. I would like to make a motion to approve. I do have a question about, are we doing just
Let's just
the
start
JROTC?
with the agreement with the Air Force.
Yeah.
Let's start with that
I don't have a
first.
question about that.
Okay.
I just want to make a motion.
This is agreement with the Air Force, and then we'll move to the BBC.
Got it.
Trustee Miller. Okay.
We've had this issue of low enrollment before. This board has stepped up to help deliver, so the program will stay active in Novato and serve Novato kids. So let's do it again and get this thing back in line.
All right. Trustee Nell?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate some of the things that the sergeant was talking about. I attended the Vets and Cadets event, and I got to tell you, I was really, really proud of our cadets. They're an amazing group of young adults who took responsibility for putting on the event in so many different ways, and I just want to tell you that we should all be very, very proud. These are excellent young people who participate in this program, and their futures look bright. Some of the other things I wanted to say is that this program is also responsible for producing many students who go on to further their education, whether it's at one of the military academies, but also at a lot of good colleges and universities and graduate studies, et cetera. So I just think we should give them credit for how they augment our public education here in Novato, and I'm really proud of the work that you guys do, and I especially want to thank both of you for the work that you do. So thanks.
Thank you.
Is there a timeline on this agreement, or is it opened? Like before, they used to have a review within 5 years or something like that to revisit this. Our previous MOU with the Air Force had some sort of time on it.
I wasn't here then.
Yeah, no, I know. So does this one currently?
This one they want
Doesn't look like
signed
it
by the
does.
end of this month, and then I just fax it over.
Yeah.
There's no, again.
Oh, it says right here, the Air
They
Force.
just kind of send them out randomly. Talking to Sarge here, the one that we have on the books now is like 13. But he said he's seen them maybe every 5 years, but there's no set time when
Yeah,
they
it
set
says
out.
under general provisions, F2 on page 12, it says this agreement shall remain in effect until officially terminated or suspended under a provision of subsection 3E.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, yeah, it is. The Air Force reserves the right to require renewal of this agreement by both parties. Okay, yeah. It's just a little bit different than the previous one. That's what I'm saying. Okay. All right, so we have a first by trustee Aguila and a second by trustee Miller. This is approval of the MOU to establish and operate an Air Force Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps unit at Novato High School, otherwise known as JROTC. All those in favor? 7-0, okay. All right, so let's move on to the Building Better Citizens of America MOU, which Susan Miller is here. Hi, Susan.
Well, every year, I think, we're supposed to revisit this, and we're a little tardy. But thanks to Superintendent Hogaboom, it was brought to our attention to look at it. I apologize. It was my responsibility to get this to Sally by Friday, but I don't know what the deadline is to get it in your packets. And at the last minute, when I actually reread it, I had 3 words I would like to add. And if this is or isn't signed tonight, this is not time sensitive. If you have it in front of you.
I have a hard copy, but I don't know if everybody does. Okay. Okay, good. Everybody does.
All
Great.
I wanted to do is page 1, paragraph 2. Third line from the bottom, there are some examples of situations. Obviously, there could be other examples, but some of the examples of situations where BBCA needs to be by the district notified of major changes of the program. And under the examples, it says Air Force status, comma, instructors, comma, scheduling and course sections. I would like to add the 3 words after that comma, classroom facilities changes, comma, and then going on. That's, yeah, although it could be interpreted different ways. In other words, I figured, Jack, why not, So if that is acceptable to everybody without having to delve into every detail in here, you can approve it tonight if you wish. If not, I'll just wait for your approval. My board has approved it.
We could, if the board agrees, we can approve with that addendum. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Trustee Aguila?
I agree too. And since we are making changes or adding something, I just wanted to add on the first paragraph.
Susan, could you mind coming back up? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is not a biggie, but just on the number 1, it would say the second sentence that starts with it. And I'm assuming it would be the JROTC.
Yes, because that's stated in the first sentence.
Right, and so to continue I would just
I'm
do
sorry, I haven't found you.
JROTC.
Paragraph 1?
Second sentence
Second
instead
sentence.
of
Let
it.
me fast all those commas. There, no, yeah.
Instead of it, I would do JROTC. And then on the second, number 2.
Second paragraph?
Sure, second paragraph. I don't see them as paragraphs, but the numbers, yes. Number 2 would be first sentence, or second sentence, actually, I would add a comma after annually. And that's it.
Okay.
No objection.
Did the rest of the board understand?
And I make a motion.
Okay. Yes, okay. So we have a first by trustee Aguila, second. Did anybody have, no, okay.
I
Okay.
think Ross had a second.
Okay, so Ross was and now let's have discussion. So, trustee Cooper.
Okay, so paragraph 3 or number 3. How does this work? And Jim, you may understand this better. So we're talking about, sometimes this is an opportunity for the district to increase our ADA by students from outside of our district coming into our district, and therefore we get the ADA for those students. What's mentioned in here is kind of a hybrid of that, if you will, where they don't really be, hello. Oh, really? Okay, so he's prepared. So it's a hybrid, so it's not, we're not getting the full ADA, or it sounds like, I'm not sure, but if you could explain that, how that works, because it's always been in my mind a great opportunity to increase revenue.
Yay.
Right?
Yeah,
Hear from Yancy.
so that is basically if they're dual enrolled students, so if they're at Petaluma High or Terra Linda High and they come for just the JORTC program, they are not enrolled in enough classes for us to claim ADA for those students. And therefore, I believe that's why it's in the agreement.
So how do we get paid for all the services? So does the district, I mean, clearly there's some expenses related to those students attending our classes, right? Or no?
There are, and what we do is we look at that on an annual basis. This usually is not a large percentage of the students, so you're only talking
No, I
about
can't imagine there
a
are
few
probably-
students. And I think what's in there is just to protect the district around that. If there is significant interest in that, or if for some reason one of
All for them
the
coming
district.
down and taking all of their courses here.
Absolutely, and that obviously is what we we would love for them, and we push them to do that.
Okay,
but if it works out that they can just be in this program, we try to do what we can to make that work, and that means potentially working with their district or working with our partners to potentially make that financially
Perfect.
viable.
I'm happy with that. I'm also, just to make a quick comment, I'm happy that, I'm not quite sure why historically the last several years we haven't allowed access to the middle schools, but I'm happy that we are now. So
We
that's
are
good.
too.
Yeah.
And,
I don't know why that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Trustee Gasson.
So I just had to comment because I think it's interesting how life kind of evolves, and I'm actually going to, is he there? Yeah. I actually have a factoid. John Salmons, I've known him for a long time, and I love him. I was actually the person who helped establish Building Better Citizens for America. I helped him with all.
noticed that name on
It
those
wasn't on the-
old documents.
It was, I just helped him get it set up through the bank I was working with. So that was about 17 years ago.
Yeah.
So I love that it's still, I know he was passionate about it, and I'm happy to see that the program's still going. And
Yes,
stuff.
yeah, thank you very much.
Trustee Nell, did you have a comment? No. Okay.
No, I'm in
I
agreement.
wasn't sure. No. Okay. Trustee Aguila, and then we'll move on.
Are we now accepting people from all over Marin County and Sonoma County?
I think we have
Any other
one student
counties?
from elsewhere. You can tell me that.
Yes, thank you.
So yes, our agreement is that, and our understanding is that we can have any students from Marin County, and I've even had some outreach to Petaluma. And in fact, I've got a mother and a son right now. He's in Petaluma Junior High School, who is considering coming here for junior ROTC. I've explained to them the options are he can come for one class a day and then go back to his other school for classes, or he can apply for an inter-district transfer. My understanding is we have students in MSA that come from San Francisco, the East Bay area. They're well outside the district and well outside the county. They're eligible to come here. So my understanding is we're welcoming to the same thing.
Absolutely.
So.
To any counties, not just those two, any other counties.
Right, any other county. And because we're a program like MSA that is not available in a lot of those areas, that's the grounds for them to be able to use the junior ROTC to come here under an inter-district or an intra-district transfer, come to Nevada High School. And I would love them to come here and take all the classes as well, primarily because if they're coming here just for one class a day and going back to their schools, they're not integrating into the social structure of what our program offers. We're a family. And when they have the opportunity to come in before school, after school, lunch and break, and hang out with the other students, they're more likely to get involved in the extracurricular activities. Those are where the real magic happens in our program. So.
Great,
All right.
thank you.
So we'll move forward. I just want to make sure we have the first and the second. Sally, do you have everything that you need for changes, or? Okay. Do you want me to go through them, or no? You're good? Okay, and I have them too. Okay, so we have, yes.
Could I say one more quick thing?
Yes.
And that is on the recruitment, since we had this unfortunate dip in enrollment last year, the instructors are working very hard because they've had excellent feeders from our own schools in the past. Unfortunately, because of that dip, it thwarted our attempt, our readiness, which is what we had intended to do, was to then begin the, broaden the outreach to other schools in the area. So we're always amenable to that, but we know that we have the best access here. So we're trying to get our numbers up here, and then we will work on broadening our outreach, so. Okay.
Yes.
Students pick classes in March 15, you think? March 28th.
Yeah.
So Jim, is there some way to make sure that the Sinaloa community understands the opportunities of these programs? If we missed, is there something we can do in this year to start resolving this issue instead of waiting until next year? I mean, it's sort of up to you. It's pretty quick and pretty.
Yeah, I'm not, they have different programs there because most of those kids go to San Marin, but we can probably find some way to do something. What happened in the past, Tom, was there was an assembly, but it was run a different way, I would say. So not all groups were given the same access, I guess is the way that I would say it. So they were there, but the way it was didn't allow for equal opportunity access, so to speak. So we fixed that. Debbie Richardson's been doing great with it. And we'll try to find a way. I don't know what that would be, but I can talk with these guys and we'll see if we can do some kind of outreach at least before the end of the month.
All right.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a first by Trustee Aguila, a second by Trustee Millerick, and this includes the 3 changes that were presented and agreed to. And this is an annual, it's extended annually, so this will come back next year to be approved as well. So all those in favor? 7-0. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for waiting for the agenda. Okay. Board members, we'll move on back to our staff reports. This is the teacher leadership team.
Hello, in a world. All right, at your last board meeting, in your consent agenda packet, you had some information about the low-performing student block grant that Nevada Unified School District applied for. We were pushed up at a pretty important timeline, so we appreciate you putting that on the agenda. But we want to take the opportunity tonight to really kind of emphasize for you what you signed off on, and that is our teacher leadership team. The Ed Services Department in early February, we started something called a listening tour, and we went to every single school site and camped out in the staff room and just listened. We asked how they were experiencing our initiatives, asking how they were experiencing professional development, asking if we were having the right goals, the right people in the room, and basically asking what are the knowledge, motivation, and organizational challenges that are impacting the achievement gap in NUSD. I have copious pages of notes. We have some strong, opinionated, smart people out there working, and so it was really fun to get that perspective from all the different staffs and individuals on what they're seeing and how they're experiencing our system. So we really came up with some interesting themes from our listening tour. When we came to the aspect of knowledge, something that we heard, and these are direct quotes that I jotted down in my notebook. So for knowledge, we would hear things like, there's so many things happening in the district, I don't know what to focus on. I don't know how to meet students' deficits while staying on pace. For the area of motivation, we'd hear from teachers, as a teacher, I volunteered to attend a lot of meetings. I just wish I felt like I was making a difference being in the room. Organizationally, we heard things like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do when I have a student who struggles to achieve or struggles to behave appropriately after I've tried everything I can think of to help. And then teachers would tell us that when they'd reach that point, they'd reach out to our special ed department, and the special ed was overwhelmed. So those are probably themes that you've heard talking to teachers. Many of those things have been said at the podium here, and those are things that we want to really make sure we're planning to address. So we identified these themes and said, well, what is it that we're hearing? For the knowledge challenge, we feel like there's low system understanding philosophically of a philosophical and pedagogical foundation for our initiatives. how they work together, including our learning targets, our proficiency scales, and our proficiency-based education. Motivational, we identified that teachers are seeing themselves at times as unimportant voices in our mission, as their requests and suggestions are often perceived as being unsupported. Organizationally, we captured that as teachers are reporting a lack of strategic planning and clearly articulated processes to support tiered response interventions for students. So those were really the themes that we were hearing, talking to teachers, and the things that they're trying to communicate to us and how we can better serve them in their classrooms. We saw this reflected again in our youth truth data. So this question says, this summary measures describes the degree to which staff receive meaningful feedback, have opportunities to grow professionally, and feel supported in their work. And you can see that we're landing at 3.43 on a 4-point scale. So that's telling us that our teachers are needing something different from us for their professional growth and their support. So that was the high school metric that we just saw. This is the middle school metric, coming in at 3.15. And our elementary metric is reflecting that as well. A little bit better on the elementary side, 3.74. So the Education Services Department is really taking this as an ask and a challenge in how we structure what we're doing. As you know, we went from a team of 14 to 7 mighty dedicated souls. And so it's really important for us to not only work harder, but to work smarter in what we're doing and making sure that we're interfacing directly with teachers and getting a sense of what it is that they need to develop, and making sure that we're communicating to them our 2 overarching goals. We've talked a little about this in the past, but it's our multiple tiered systems of support and making sure that we know where in the system those supports are so that teachers know how to access that. My analogy for that is, like a menu. I've got a child who is having problems attending. I'm trying these interventions. What's in the system that can help me? So that's that multiple tiered system of support. A lot of the comments here earlier tonight are going to be a part of that work, making sure we have trauma-informed classrooms, making sure that we have that socio-emotional piece really robustly taking place in our first best instruction. And the other aspect that we're working on is that proficiency-based learning, making sure that we are tracking student mastery, that our grades aren't around compliance-based behaviors, but around actual mastery of certain learning targets. So those are the 2 scopes of work that we've forecasted for you that we're doing. We want to make sure that teachers understand this work. The Education Service Department is out doing what we like to call the road show. And any school that would like to invite us out, we're kind of giving them that high-level overview, 5-year articulated plan so that staff can see it. But we want to do more. So our solution for our knowledge problem is that we want to expand teacher understanding of the proficiency-based learning. These educational strategies that have been proven to accelerate the work of closing the achievement gap. That's our first solution. Second, we want to implement a teacher leadership team equipped with a deep understanding of what that actually is to promote collaborative leadership and to facilitate strategic system planning. So this is bringing a targeted group of individuals across the Novato Unified School District, making sure that they understand Marzano's research around proficiency-based learning, and they're ready to bring that back to their sites, and that we have a high level of knowledge, that it's not just localized at the Education to Service Department, that's deep within our system. And our organizational challenge, of course, is to make sure that we're building that multiple tiered system and support, and that it's clearly articulated, that our teachers understand problem solving, decision making, and that those practices are across the educational system to support those students. So this leadership team is going to help us ensure that effective changes are implemented and that we're hearing teacher voice in the room. What we're going to ask these leaders to do is not only become highly educated in these matters, but also be the voice of each of their school sites, their peers. Let us know how they're experiencing professional development, dates, times. Are we going too fast? Are we going too slow? Are there things we can do more expeditiously? We're putting this team together. We've got the application open right now. And we'll have this team together in April. We're going to take them off for a leadership retreat and so that we can develop a nice, highly functioning team. And they'll come back in August where they'll spend 3 days with our trainers from the Marzano Research Center and begin their work in the system. They're designed to work hand in hand with principals. We've taken that block grant, and you can see that while we are using some consultants, that they're only using a small fraction of those funds. But the majority of it is really invested in building teacher capacity within NUSD and making sure that the leadership is something that's going to be carried forward. So our hope with this targeted team, and we'll be bringing back more information for you soon about who's on that team and our work together, and we hope that you'll get the chance to interface with these teachers, is to really find ways to not just go around the obstacles that we're experiencing, but talk together, have high trust with one another, get on the same page, and just cut through those challenges. Questions?
Questions? Trustee Mack, then Trustee Gasson.
Awesome. It's funny, in reading the survey results, there's a couple written responses that kind of touched on this, so kudos, jumping ahead.
We hear them.
Yeah. Just logistical questions. Are we talking about trying to have representation across every physical campus? Talk about that.
Yep. So we're looking at a minimum of 2 per campus. So each teacher leader has got a partner on the campus. We are hoping to really sort of capture those grade levels, but it's going to kind of come down to who's applying to that. But we're really trying to get as robustly as possible that teacher voice.
Trustee Gasson?
Thank you for doing this. When I saw that you were going on this tour, I thought it was really cool because I think it's important to actually go out and try to get that input because even though we did the Youth True survey, it's different, and I think it's great to do that personal connection. So hearing what you heard is pretty consistent with what I hear. And I was even realizing as a parent on the school site, I'm not even sure what we're doing anymore. You know, I think I've lost it a little bit over the years of, you know, switching to Common Core. I know project-based, but, you know, what are we doing? And I didn't realize it until you mentioned that I think even the community maybe is confused about where we were going or what we're doing. One of my thoughts when I originally saw this at the when it was being presented, is the concern I have with, you know, we put a lot of effort and a lot of intent and purpose in doing trainings or getting teams together, and you know, my thought is, okay, great, we do this, and then they move off or something. So is there any design that we could create where if we lose, I like that it's going to possibly be a team as much as it can be, but is there any way to design it that if that person is not going to be with us, that they somehow can mentor somebody to replace them, or, you know, just making sure that if we get this great program going and these leadership team in place, that it doesn't start breaking down if we lose.
Yep. Where our goal is to always keep at least 40 individuals at the table, and we're working with our union partners to make sure that they have a voice and, you know, making sure that the right people are at the table. And we're seeing this as really like driving the pylons of our initiative down as deeply as possible so that if someone's sitting in the staff room confused about project-based learning, there's at least 2 people that are sitting there eating lunch beside them that are easily able to say, well, I'll tell you, I had a voice in what we're doing. Here's our thinking. Here's the understanding. You know, how can I send questions back up? Are there things we should be changing? So that's really what we're trying to build, and we're hoping that the success of this year will really just breed success in future years to come. Jen Larson wants to expand it and triple it, and but as we're talking to the Marzano Research Center just this week, they said that they were so thrilled to hear that we were doing this, that there's actually one of their members is writing a book about this practice and is very excited to see our model and see how it works. But they're seeing a lot of results in the effectiveness of a team like this, and we're really hoping that it will help sort of fill in and become kind of the mortar between the bricks and initiatives that exist in our system.
Anybody else? Trustee Cooper?
Thank you so much. This is exciting. I liken you to creating the Warriors. You're Steve Kerr.
Whoa, that's
You've got
right.
some great players. You're setting up the best team.
That must make Larson Steph Curry.
You've got the best team. You will have the best team, and you're going to be really, I mean, this is going to drive exactly into what we were talking about earlier about the A to G requirements. And you're setting up your team in such a way we're going to succeed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. This is great.
Great. Thank you.
You're not busy, are you? All right, 2019-20 budget balancing process, Yancey Hawkins presenting next. And then we have one more item after that.
All right, thank you. President Butler, trustees. So I'm here tonight to give an update on the budget balancing process. A lot of these things may not be new, some of the things we've been banging the drum for the last several years, but I do think it's important to give an update on where we are in the process and to give the board an opportunity to ask any questions that they might have as we move forward. So the overall budget themes have not changed. We still are dealing with declining enrollment due to lower birth rates in Marin County. We still have those state mandated pension rate increases. Those things have led to deficit spending, and obviously with deficit spending, we need to turn that around and make sure that we are fiscally viable moving forward. You've seen this chart before, but we're down 340 students over a 5-year period, and at the elementary level, we're down about 600 students. So part of our declining enrollment has been offset by a bubble moving through the middle and high schools. Also, our state mandated pension increases, both in our STRS and our PERS program. We've noted this before that it's increasing at about $1 million annually, so $1 million more each year. For a total of $6 million annually by 2020-21. And so 60 teachers, that's the difference, 60 teachers in our district a year, every year. With those two factors, we have in deficit spending, and our unrestricted fund balance has decreased from 22% in 2010-11 to just over 12% on June 30th, 2018. So what have we done? In 2017-18, we formed the Budget Advisory Committee. Over 24 members, including representatives from our stakeholder groups, met over 5 months, worked through and made recommendations. They made $1.5 million of the $2 million of recommendations that this board acted on in the spring of 2018 into 2018-19. The other $500,000, a little over $500,000, was related to costs on declining enrollment. So not changing any staffing formulas, just with less students, you need less teachers and less support staff in some of our formulas. So moving forward, the budget deficit was decreased significantly and moving into this year. But due to those factors in continuing, including a larger decrease in student population in 2018-19. In the fall, the board directed staff to make recommendations for a process to continue making budget reductions and budget solutions. In December, the board approved that as part of the first interim. And in December and January, staff really worked upon and used the Budget Advisory Committee's work as the starting point and to move forward into the 2019-20 budget balancing process. On January 29th, I gave an update to the board on where we were. And then on February 1st, we released the video that Superintendent Hogeboom so wonderfully presented the budget. I was very proud of him. He nailed it, so good job. But there really was, I actually heard a lot of people talking about how they really felt that, the video kind of, brought things, kind of in an easy way to look at our budget and the issues that we were facing. On February 5th, we held a budget balancing Q&A at the district office. And from February 1st to February 15th, we opened a budget balancing survey to all of our stakeholder groups. And I'm happy to say that we received over 1,500 responses to the survey across the different stakeholder groups, including a significant amount in Spanish, which I was really happy about. Oops, sorry. So after the budget balancing survey was completed, we sent those results to different stakeholder groups to get additional feedback of, do these results mirror the things you're hearing in your community? What were any surprises? What other feedback would you have for the group? We did that with our labor partners in NFT and CSEA. We did that with the Council of PTAs. We did that with administration at a DLT. And then we did that with our students. Jim, I believe YLI was working with. We're still getting there. Yeah, they're finalizing, but we got the results and the written. And so they were able to give feedback, and I'm happy to say that for the most part, their feedback has been that the survey results mirror pretty much what they're hearing in their communities, which was good to hear. Last meet, Cabinet met to discuss balancing, balanced budgeting, budget balancing, the survey results and options, and working to bring that list into working order. We also met in executive cabinet, and we met again today. Obviously, we're here tonight. And then the two big dates left open are the study session that is scheduled for March 12th, where there will be a draft list of recommendations, and then a meeting scheduled for March 19th, where we're scheduled to act upon a final list of budget solutions for 2019-20. So with that, I'm happy to open it up to questions.
Questions? Trustee Miller.
Yes.
So I'm looking at 1314, which top says 20%. And if I start going down from there to the right, the next one is a 1.5%. The next one, well, pardon me, if you go over 2, it goes down 3%. So I divided it in half.
Yep.
Took the next one and sort of just went straight over. So it's 1.5%, 1.5%, 2%, and 3% dropped off. And for just rule of thumb, if we were a $100 million district, we're probably closer to 90.
Yes.
So that's like $2 million every year that we're spending that we don't have, starting in 14-15. That 14-15, so that's 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, instead of sitting here talking about increasing programs and adding more units and adding additional training, that we're going to increase the programs that we have. Somehow we have to close campuses, add more students to each classroom, shut down programs that we offer that we can't afford. We cannot afford to spend $2 million every year that we don't have, and that's what we've been doing for 5 years. This ought to make our hair stand on fire. This is crazy that it's gone on this long. So I'm looking forward for the next 2 weeks to have a very hard conversation about getting the school district turned right side up. Otherwise, we're going to be in the same position Oakland School District was, where the state's going to take them over. They're going to create they loaned them $100 million, then won't be $100 million for us, and we're going to disempower the trustees, disempower the community, and do horrible things to the educational opportunity for the kids in Novato. That's not why I sit on this board. That's not why I serve this community. This has to stop. And the other 6 of you, besides me, have to take some action to turn this off. So I am glad it's here in black and white or red and gray, but the time has come for us to turn this off and do large dramatic actions. If we have to stop MSA, or we have to stop the STEM program, or we have to close a campus, we need to cut the cost this district is incurring. And if we lose a few students who commute in, that's fine, but the kids that live in Novato are going to get screwed if we keep doing this. We have to stop. Quit it. 5 goddamn years.
Anybody else? No, and we understand your frustration. I mean, we get it. Yes. Trustee Nell.
Well, it's late, and I certainly understand Trustee Miller's frustration, and he's right. And unfortunately, this is not, brought upon us by irresponsible spending or overcommitments. We've been, as fiscally responsible as we can. This is just a direct result of these pension increases. So I just want to say it that the decisions that were made 32 years ago are coming home to roost. And by the way I figure it, about 68 to 70% of all the new revenue we've received since 2008 has gone to prop up this particular issue. I heard you call it 60 teachers. So that's certainly one way to look at it. So, I'm looking forward to getting serious about this as well. But I think we have to have a controlled process, and I think the assistant superintendent in charge of our chief financial has got a plan, and he's bringing some ideas forward. But I, for one, tend to agree with Trustee Miller that we need to stop, trimming around the edges, and we just need to get serious, and we need to consolidate. And so hopefully that'll be something that we'll be discussing in detail. So,
thank you, Trustee Nell.
Thank you, Trustee Nell. Anybody else? All right. Trustee Gasson?
So I have a couple of comments. One, I've mentioned this before, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but one of the things that I know happens is kids are just, if they're behind is not in that seat, we lose money. And creating a campaign or awareness to parents that, I know, the principal sometimes will send something out in a newsletter, please, don't take your kid out of school or whatever. But, as I understand it, the number I got, and it doesn't have it defined as excused or unexcused, but just cumulatively of 2.8 million is lost. So if we improve that would be nice if there was a way to do that. I agree that something needs to be done. I disagree a little bit in the sense that I think we have to not forget those programs that are the reason that kids are staying here. I actually talked to the Kona Ice family, and they mentioned, I can't remember now which state, they've been in Texas and Ohio, but they knew about our program and they moved to Novato for the MSA. It turns out they didn't go in it, they're actually in STEM, but the point of it was that it's drawing people here, and I don't think that that's where you know, once we start breaking down those things, I think it's just we're gonna collapse. So my suggestion or my comments that I sent to Yancey and Jim reflected my desire, my own way of looking at things, is that you don't, when you're making cuts, try not to take away money from the things that are helping retain and attract kids to our schools. I think that would be a mistake. And then another thing that I was looking at when I looked at all the different options, and I actually hadn't reviewed the questionnaire intentionally because I wanted to, you know, not go in with any predetermined, oh, well, why would they say we should cut this or whatever. And so going through in detail all the comments and the feedback and everything is just an awareness that, you know, as much as we cannot hit the school sites, you know, in terms of staffing reductions, whatever, you know, I just see that there's just so much, or at least the campuses that I go on, they're already struggling. And I know we need to figure something out, but if we can keep it away from the school sites as much as possible. And I think that was it.
Trustee Mack?
You know, I appreciate Trustee Miller pointing out what he did, because it does bring home the fact that this has been going on for a while and it's time for us to make some pretty bold moves. I believe nipping and tucking around the edges, that's done. There's no more of that. We need to start making some bold decisions. And, you know, really some big chunks. And I'll just say it in public, we need to really seriously consider campus count. We need to be serious about that. We also need to be serious about class size. Those are the biggest bang for the buck here, and we can solve the problem pretty quickly if we get serious about those issues. And that's where I'm at until convinced otherwise. And interestingly, though, this survey really is an eye-opener for me in terms of all the different constituent groups out there and where their heads are at. And there's a lot of consistency coming out, not only in terms of what we should consider reducing, but also don't you dare touch this. And that tells me that there's two things to think about here. One, yes, absolutely, we need to find out how to reduce, eliminate this structural deficit in a bold way, in a permanent way. But two, there are some programs here screaming for more funds, and we need to be cognizant of the fact that this is an opportunity to take a look at how we can improve them. Wellness centers, AVID, I mean, they're screaming that they need more money, that everybody agrees they need more money. So while I know the exercise here is budget discipline, we also need to use this opportunity to look at things that really should get more money and be even more aggressive in cutting the things that aren't as critical as those things are now. So once again, be bold with the cuts and start looking at ways we can start providing more lifeblood to these other really important programs that we have to sustain. And also, to Trustee Gasson's point, we can't kill the revenue. We can't go cut things and then watch our top line decline as a result of it. So we need to be cognizant of cuts that will impact our top line. That's my thought process.
Anybody else? We will have this discussion much more in depth on next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Okay, so we're going to move forward. Thank you, Yancey.
Thank you.
Yes, Superintendent Hogaboom.
So appreciate all those comments, and just a quick summary. I mean, district's in a really tough position because we all want to pay our teachers more, and as you saw, that's leading to strikes. And if you look at Sacramento and Oakland and LA, I would suggest that they've overpaid what they could afford. But I understand that. And, you know, you look at Oakland that's losing $1 million a day when there's a strike. We all love teachers and we want to pay our teachers more. So, but those things combined together, again, Sac City, if they don't work together, which I don't think the union's willing to do, is going to go belly up in November and they're going to get taken over. And I think there's a lot of people who think that the LA Unified and the Oakland Unified agreements are going to bankrupt those districts. And so, again, districts are in a really tough position because we all love our teachers. We wish we could pay our teachers as much as Southern Marin. So it's just a bad situation to be in, and I agree we need to do bold moves. So what we're doing is we're finalizing our list. We're talking to the people that are on the list ahead of time to let them know that there's a possibility that they could be cut. We're letting them know that today, tomorrow, and the next day. Friday, we'll kind of send the list out. You'll see people coming on next Tuesday saying, why we can't cut this, we can't cut that. And that's why, you know, you guys are in the position you are to make those hard decisions. And but I will say that it's getting to the point that it is going to hit the classrooms, Dan. We can't keep it from classrooms anymore. We're going to have to close schools, do some other things, because we've cut everything we can. Including administration in this district office, including everything we can possibly think of. And obviously everybody wants to do that first and keep it away from schools as much as possible. But you'll start to see a couple of the cuts that you'll see this week, you know, does cut school budgets to some degree. So we're out of options at this point, and but we've got to stop spending more money than we're taking in. And so we have some tough decisions to make, and we'll bring some ideas for you guys on Tuesday, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, Trustee Gasson.
Just quickly, I mean, I understand that. I think I'm probably was reading my notes poorly, but I meant more staffing, you know, trying to keep the staff at the schools. I just see that they're really shorthanded as it is. So I know that decisions will be made, but, and I appreciate whatever you guys come up with, but I wanted to put that in as kind of where my thought process was going when you're doing that. So.
All right, moving along to our last item. You have the presentation at your board table. Schematic design, schedule, cost estimates, IT infrastructure upgrade program for the 2 high schools.
All right. So usually we just pass this right over to Mike and Todd with Greystone and their team. But you know, I had to jump in on some money issues. No, I actually wanted to, I'll let Mike get back to that after that, but I wanted to give a little context around where we are on the IT infrastructure projects, because we had a meeting on October 2nd where we re-racked some projects, we added some projects, and it changed how we were going to be implementing some of these projects. So because we're not bringing a schematic design for all of the IT infrastructure projects, I wanted you to give the board a little bit of scope or a little bit of information to feel comfortable around this piece of the total. So as you guys know, on October 2nd at the board meeting, we moved around a couple projects, including adding AC projects at 3 elementary schools and the athletic turf complex at Novato High. With that, we needed to defer some projects from the 2019-20 timeframe to the 2021-22 timeframe. And so, so what we had to do there was 3 projects, and it's listed as 4, but the IT infrastructure and the IT infrastructure equipment. So those are one project, but kind of 2 separate budgets that we look at. The 21st century furniture and the IT classroom toolkit was about $20 million. And as noted below, these numbers have been rounded for the presentation purposes. It's not exactly, but so in order to add those AC projects and the athletic field complex, we had to defer about $10 million of these 3 projects to 2021-22 timeframe. And so how staff worked on that was to almost in their entirety defer the classroom technology toolkit and furniture budgets that hadn't been spent, and then move the approximately $13 million in the IT infrastructure back to about $10 million. And so what that means is that we had to prioritize which sites that we would be working on, and we did that with a 2-pronged review. The first was age and condition of the current IT infrastructure, and the second part was usage and educational impact. So we worked with the Ed Services side, obviously, on that, and the IT. And then we had our construction folks as well as our IT team do an analysis of the condition of the IT infrastructure. So moving forward, we made the decision that we would recommend that Novato High and San Marin High would be our first two. They were on the top in terms of usage and educational impact, and they were in the middle to the top of the condition. And so tonight's presentation includes that, which includes $3.8 million of that included up in the $10 million construction budget. Tim Rocco brought earlier today some information around E-rate and the WAPs and the Cisco switches to each of the classrooms and the battery backup. Those will be included in the equipment budget overall that this board has already approved. Overall switch upgrades in the district as well as a firewall upgrade very recently. But I note that $3.8 million of the $10 million to say that we've gone through and we've done a budget review of all of our estimated IT projects, and we are still within the range that we feel are comfortable that $10 million, $10.5 million is in the range. I can't tell you if there will be escalations that are different than our projections because we're talking a couple of years out. But I am comfortable bringing the $3.8 million as part of the overall plan. With just kind of an overall, we have a remaining budget probably of a little bit less than $6 million once you take into consideration the equipment purchases. And so next summer in the 2020, we're likely to bring additional schools that have come to the list on that two-pronged review of the sites. And with that, I will turn it over to Mike Woolard and Todd Lee with Greystone West.
Which way do we go?
Thank you.
I'm afraid to touch this. Might turn it off again. Thanks, Nancy. Evening, trustees. It's always great to go last, especially after the budget part. So, typical schematic design presentation. Just a little bit amplifying information given the background with this project. But I'm glad that Tim Rocco came up here earlier and Trustee Melrick. Basically, what they talked about, we want to do that at the two high schools. That's about as simple as I can make it, but getting a little more technical, I'll show you my technical diagrams compared to what Tim put up. Basically, the originating red dot is the main data frame where all the signals come in. And we're looking to where the red lines represent fiber runs to all the locations. This is Novato High as an example, to where we want to put it, including the new sites for the new buildings. We're going to make runs out there, coil up some line and wait till they're built and then run those to the new buildings. The one that looks like it's going off the chart in the parking lot, that's the press box at the field. And we have the same thing. Novato's a little more dense, spread out than San Marin, so there's a lot more runs. But like Tim mentioned earlier, we surprisingly found some underground conduit that nobody seemed to know about. We couldn't find on drawings, but it's in really good shape and it's underground, and it's going to potentially save us some money on materials for sure for conduit, and most likely less sheathing we'll have to do to protect some of the cable in some of the areas. So that was a nice find. And then moving ahead to San Marin, the classes are more clustered, so less red lines, but same kind of thing. Their main data frame is in their library. And then we have the one line going out to the far right is also to the press box.
So the endpoints, what do they represent?
So the endpoints represent the fiber to the building, and then that's where an existing IDF is in the building now, the interim or intermediate data frame. That cabinet, which I think I have one in my office over there, those go away. The noisy, loud things that should be cooled have to have their own power source. That goes away. We put in a fancy switch, and I'm sorry, no offense, Trustee Mulrick, I don't know the exact number type switch, but goes to the switch, and then we run fiber to basically the top of each classroom, and then there's another switch. It's an 8-port switch, and fiber comes in one end and then the copper comes out and has 8 drops into the classroom. So one's for the display we're looking to put in there, one's for the phone, future clock bell system, one's for the WAP, the one that's there now or upgraded one, and then we have a couple extra for some other things, printers, computers, whatever they need in the classroom. So it's a new standard, but if we need more, like Tim said earlier, you can just adjust the equipment in that switch in the building and you can bring more, excuse me, more signal in. So it is really advancing us from 20 years ago to 20 years in the future. I just like to be more simple with lines and dots. Just to give you a visual of where we're doing it. And basically, I'll give it to Todd to do the fun part, which is the cost estimate and then the construction schedule.
So I'll move through this quickly. You can see an anticipated bid amount of just over $2.9 million with a design contingency of 5%. That's for things that are going to come to fruition between schematic design and the final design. And then a construction contingency of 10%, and that's to cover costs that come up during the construction process. Soft costs you can see are based on actuals. We come up with just under $3.9 million. It's been fairly consistent. We've kind of bounced back and forth a little bit. Novato's coming in at just over $2 million, and San Marin at about 1.8. Novato, as Mike Willard mentioned, got a little bit simpler over the ski week. During our reconnaissance, we discovered the conduit that don't appear in any of your drawings, and appears that a lot of the rooftop conduit out of there for the phone system that was put in the 90s ignored that conduit was in place. So that was a really happy find. In both cases, the conduit infrastructure is pretty good. This 3.8 is really kind of the dumb part of the project. It's pipe and wire and some power sources. And Mr. Rocco's side is kind of the smart side. I'm going to kick it to the schedule. So for the schedule, what we're going to try and do is get boots on the ground just as soon as the classrooms are empty, and start pulling cable and replacing conduits and adding conduits. There is some conduit that has to go in place. And we're going to try and sequence it into pieces so we can turn it over to the IT department and they can start bringing classrooms up as we finish them. Pretty high degree of confidence that we can have everything up before school starts. For temporary, just say we're going to heat up some wireless access points off the existing system in a couple locations on campus, so you have some connectivity for administration and other things that are going on over the summer. We're not taking everything down, but again, we are reusing a lot of the conduit, so we have to pull the copper out to be able to pull the fiber in. I won't go into details on the schedules at this time of night, but if you have questions, happy to answer them.
Trustee Mack? Just 2 quick questions. I noticed there's a difference between lines 13 and 25 between the 2 campuses upgrading the conduit pass. Am I to presume it's just because Novato's is more complex and spaghetti-like?
Again, this was produced before the Ski Week discovery.
Okay.
So we had, our initial thought was we were going to have a lot more conduit replacement because the conduit's in a lot worse shape at Novato than it is at San Marin. They're probably closer to equal now, but if you look at the 2 runs, there are a lot more conduit runs at Novato if you just look at the density as Mike referred to it between the 2 drawings.
So then that leads me to my next question, more an aesthetic question. Does this mean we can demo all that ugly conduit that's all over that campus?
Yes and no. Some of it
or cover it?
Some copper active. For example, we're not going to pull new fiber into the temporary portables that you're going to tear down, so we're going to have to keep some copper active and keep that stuff up. At some point before we finish your modernization program, it would be good to go through and inventory all of those, identify what is obsolete, and start to clean that off, maybe associated with a roofing project or something toward the end. I don't think we're going to have the time or the luxury to do that as part of this project.
But it's envisioned.
Yeah,
So, okay,
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Trustee Millick, were you next?
A couple of points on the Novato site. Tim there's one, the red line that goes on the little spider diagram, the red line that goes clear out to the ball field, and the one that goes over to the tennis courts. And those would be outdoor antennas, and as Tim pointed out, the most current architecture are not offered yet. It'll be another 3 months before they're in the market. So those will be temporary, probably.
These are for future use.
Yeah.
One's for the PAC. Tennis courts is the tennis courts for the new Center for the Arts, and then the one up top goes to the actual inside of the press box.
But the access point where there's a little dish up there on the ceiling, you probably want to point it outside, pointing down the bleachers. So you probably want the actual access point is probably an external device. So some of these are going to be delayed, but this is conceptually pretty sound, because the question was, have you covered all the classrooms, which was the obvious first step. The next question is, have you covered all the public spaces that students expect to participate in? That would be the lunch area, that would be the gymnasium when there's a ball game, that would be the football field, that would be any of those areas that tend to be, you don't think about it in your first, people pick the parking lot maybe, or in the elementary schools would be where the moms come through and pick up the kids. So the kid's on his cell phone telling mom where he is, you'd like to make sure they can connect, because that's a safety weather issue. So they've got those public spaces identified in this diagram, which is nice to see. And then there's going to be a security camera discussion, which is beyond what we see here, I think.
Thanks for bringing that. So the runs to the building, we're bringing two, correct me if I can get this wrong, but basically two sets of 3-pair wires to the building, fiber optic wires. One set's for the classroom stuff I just explained. The other set's extra. Anticipating, we're working on getting a security consultant to evaluate what we have and help us develop the new system. And we're anticipating that those will be for future expansion of our security system and our other needs. So we'll have expandability as well in each building.
Yeah, maybe. So if you can identify how you're going to use all 3-pair, maybe you want to put 4-pair in, maybe. Well, I mean,
right. I mean,
we got to future-proof this. We got to have a solution that's going to last 20 years. And if you're right up against the limit today, so I don't know. That's a discussion, because we're going to be cost constrained here pretty quick. Nice. So
Trustee Gasson.
Good.
Yeah, he's done. Ross
I'm
is
done. I just can't.
Real quick.
I'm moving him along.
Anymore.
So you got the tech guy over here, and you have I don't like dealing with tech. So this is my question. First, I want to say I'm glad you're forward thinking. I love that. I hate when we do stuff and then it's like, well, we didn't think about this, or there's no ability to. So I love that. So thank you. My basic fundamental question is, in a perfect world, everything goes really well. And I'm seriously hoping that it does. But if the timeline that you had, how many days before school opens was that? I saw the 19th or something.
We'll be literally down to the final days.
The wire.
We've got,
well, so that leads me to my question and my ignorance here. If you go back, well, I guess you don't have to go back to the red line thingy, but if you were working on this and when you're structuring it, however, if you've got, I don't know, there's 15 lines there. If you've got 10 of them done, can that be up and running, or is the whole thing not functionable if everything's not done?
No, the plan is to bring it up a wing or two at a time. So it'll be functional. It doesn't all have to be up in order to be operational. That's typically not where the challenge comes in. The cabling and that will be done. It's the IT department that's coming in behind the construction to get everything set up and running the smart side of the equation, put it that way.
So maybe a better way to ask then is, what I was wondering is that if parts of it could be, if the whole thing is not finished, are there parts that at least the school could be?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so they won't be with
No,
nothing, it'll just, it won't be complete, but there's enough that, I mean, we'd be hobbling maybe, but it would be workable.
So what we would focus on first is the wireless access points. So while you may not have all of your hard jacks in place and running, all of the wireless systems would be operational. Again, it's challenging. It's always challenging to, in a 45-day summer, to get a construction project of, $3 million completed. But we've done much larger projects over a summer without any difficulty. And yes, to your point, they're individually stand alone. So you could have it all done except for one area if that's the case. And we would, certainly the press box wouldn't be a priority for us. We'll prioritize classrooms first, probably administration first, then classrooms, then public spaces. Yeah.
All right, that wraps this item up. I would just say the $6 million that is left in there, that we don't touch it.
Yes, actually, we are asking for board approval for 3 point.
Okay.
Second.
We have a first by trustee Millerick, a second by trustee Cooper. All those in favor? 7-0. Okay, that concludes our board meeting. And just as I said, we have a special meeting on the 12th, and it's here at 6 o'clock. There is no closed session. Make sure you eat dinner before you come, all that good stuff. And there is a sign back there in the office with your name on it. So make sure you grab that on your way out. This meeting's adjourned.